Hello, hello, everyone. Happy debate day.
Yay!
We have a part 3 for you.
That's
But
part
not to
3,
worry.
yeah.
Yeah. Parts 1 and 2 are linked in the description if you somehow haven't caught them yet. But also,
Yes.
this is probably going to be a short part 3. And I say probably because sometimes we end up with long bits of leftover little bits. There's 21 minutes left in the debate we're covering. We may finish it quickly. If that happens, we do have some bonus material that we can play with. And maybe because it's the worst idea I could think of, we'll have you guys vote on which thing it is we cover.
Yeah. But you know, but never underestimate Ember and I's ability to tangent. So never underestimate that it probably will take us a while to get through this. And yeah, but I agree. Hey, let's do the vote. Let's see what people want to watch. Like, we're going to make you vote between two awful options. That's what basically we're going to do.
Are we like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 of debates?
Maybe. I don't know. That's I would take it. I would take it, to be honest with you. I would.
It could be worse.
Yeah.
It could be a lot worse, let's be honest. Although I am rather proud of the fact that we have a dumpster fire emoji now.
Oh, nice. Oh, that is glorious. I'm gonna have to use that. Oh yes.
I know. It's technically a placeholder, but why not?
And we've got a Artemis mission as well that I haven't seen before. Oh, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, holy crap. We've got like 7 more emojis since last week.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's I was not prepared because we haven't added new emoji slots for like 2 years. And then all of a sudden there's 7 more slots open. And I'm like, holy cow. Yeah.
Well, was that due to just growth and stuff? Because that's awesome. That's amazing. I love it. That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm enthused. It makes me want to do more shows, which is to the good. My health has other ideas, but still, we'll do what we can. All right, so place your bets, folks. To refresh, this is Michael Jones, Inspiring Philosophy, up against Eric Hovind. Does evolution fit in the Bibles, the magical book? The fact that their holy book is called the book, it just, why? But it's fine. Shouldn't it be like La Biblio, since it's like a library, as Alex O'Connor says? There's, 66 books, sometimes more in some versions.
Well, I believe library is biblioteca.
Well, it depends on the language.
Okay.
But something like the Bible is just the book, but it's actually a lot. It's not important. It's not my holy book. I didn't name it. I'm whatever. So it's fun.
I recall, when the evolution was being debated in the national, like the academies of science in England, I believe that one bishop just walked around holding aloft the Bible, going, "The book, the book." It was contentious.
Speaking of, Jess of How to Rule an Asteroid, who also has her own emoji. Hell yeah. She came up, I think it's her probably most recent public video. She's got more cooking behind the scenes, of course, but it's the evolution of creationism. Because even though that is intelligently designed, it's still freaking evolved, and it tickles me greatly.
Okay. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So here's our friends. Well, by friends, our besties. Let's see if I can remember where the hell they were. Because they kept detouring. Like Michael wants to play word games, by which I mean he wants to talk about like definitions and transitive use cases of certain verbs and so forth, and not actually discuss evolution or the Bible. And Eric, as per usual, is hung up on 6,000 years.
Yep.
Even though the Bible doesn't say that either.
It does not say that, yes.
6,000 years is the width of a human hair compared to 3 dozen snowmobiles, or whatever the fuck weird thing he wants to say. But you know, on the plus side of things, Sapphire Big Swamp Denier Light. I love those dapper insert names. That's amazing. Gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Sapphire. Those went to, if I can see on my screen, Gazelle Mail, Dr. Dino, Thamiker, Sylvia, BRB Bathroom. Great name. Very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, congratulations, folks. Enjoy all the ridiculous amount of custom emojis and all the other perks and things.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sapphire.
Thanks, Sapphire. That's awesome.
Yee.
Sapphire, frequent flyer to both channels of Mark Reed Atheism and Better Than Ember.
Hell yeah.
Frequent flyer. That makes it sound like you're getting points or something, you know, like.
That would be neat.
That would be neat. Well, you do get super chats. You do get super chats on a regular basis when you are a member as well. So maybe that's the frequent flyer points that you're racking up.
That's true, because the badges build up and they change and whatnot. I recently I had to add the 36-month member badge, because after a year they only let you do it every 12 months. But we're our first members are about to hit 3 years of membership, and so we need another badge.
Right.
Oh, we killed Mark. You bastards.
No, I'm okay. I'm all right.
I blame IP. All right, before we get started, any thoughts, any notes, any errata?
Just 1 second. I just got to take a swig of water.
I feel that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this has been a debate which, I mean, it's kind of been funny, but it's also been kind of frustrating because, like, I mean, like, Eric's making some good points about how evolution doesn't fit with the Bible, but instead of going, the Bible's wrong about the origin of life, he's going, well, reality can't be correct. It has to be how it's described in the Bible, right? This has been the clarion call all the way through. Well, you know, we've got to pay attention to the Bible, so evolution can't possibly be true. Michael Jones has been sort of, well, it does fit with the Bible because your translation kind of sucks, and it's sort of, if you take it like this, like the real massaging apologetics kind of thing. But of course, Eric Hovind's a fundamentalist literalist, and he thinks that you have to read the Bible as read, except when it's disadvantageous to him, and then you can read it however you want. You know, he kind of is in that school of, hey, it's got to be true.
It's literal, except when it's a metaphor. And yes, I decide when it's a metaphor. Goodness.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Dr. Kip is here. Quick reminder, whenever possible, this stream will automatically redirect to Dr. Kip's channel, because he does Budget Scripture Saturday every Saturday evening. And Kip, I gotta say, I appreciate you labeling which one is vertical, because he does like both streams, the vertical and the horizontal. I appreciate you labeling which one is the vertical right on the thumbnail, so I can redirect to the horizontal.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, I can't tell. I just take a guess. So yeah, it's good stuff. All right, I guess we'll get started. We'll see what happens. What could possibly go wrong?
Got that right.
Oh, subscribe if you're new.
Yeah.
For that.
If I could jump in here, so we mentioned some of Genesis 3 and Romans 8 for being the reason why there's this belief that there was no animal death prior to the fall.
More than that.
Mentioned
way more than that. Way more than Genesis 3 and Romans 8, just so you know.
Understood.
Okay. Stop, Eric. Come on, dude. Like, Eric's been interrupting the whole way through, and he even is now interrupting the moderator. And I think the moderator that's on his side, because Nicholas there has sort of really pushed back against him. And the weird thing is that Eric will like debate the moderators, and it's like, so they're just there to ask questions. And I don't know what format this is, because this has been Michael Jones versus Eric Hovind with a side of Nicholas Amado versus Eric Hovind and Ryan Allen versus Eric Hovind. Like, it's just been the weirdest setup for a debate. I don't understand it.
Eric versus the world or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, you're a young Earth creationist. What can I say? It is kind of be like that, you know. It's kind of Eric Hovind versus reality at this point, you know. Like, I just, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm waiting for his buddies over Dancers in Genesis to reverse their decision and be like, you know what, the Earth actually is flat.
Yeah.
Why not?
It wouldn't surprise me. Like, it really, I would not be shocked if that happens. Like, as much as Eric Hovind and his father go, oh, yeah, flat earthers are dumb, they believe the weirdest stuff. It's like, my guy, you think the world is 6,000 years old. Like, I'm sorry, but it's basically on the same level. I'm sorry, it just is.
Oh my goodness, I'm sure you must have seen it, but Kelvin Smith from AIG Canada actually did a video talking about how silly flat Earth is, and every single point he made was like, well, it's silly because it goes against the scientific consensus. It's obviously wrong from like every branch of science. It's clearly just foolish. I'm just like, I almost died from laughter. I'm like, Kelvin, say that to a mirror, my buddy. You know?
I got to find that for Fundamentalist Fails, because, I mean, seriously, it seems like the first thing that young Earth creationists do is get their sense of self-awareness just surgically removed. That's the first procedure. It's not baptism. It's not, you know, going to church. It's have your self-awareness surgically removed. Hey, Jess.
Jess here, being all lovely and whatnot. Jess, I was just talking about you as all nice things, I assure you. Is that Evolution of Creationism video live? Because I was telling people to go watch it, because since there's other stuff cooking, I don't know what the hell is going on, but it's a very fun video, and I hope people check it out. In fact, for some reason, Jess doesn't have a wrench. Well, I guess it's a shield now, but I will give Jess a wrench so that Jess can do wrenchy things, such as link to her channel and her video and so forth, so I don't have to.
Oh, it is. I didn't see that in my feed. I saw the one about Pachycetus, but I didn't see the one about evolution of young Earth creationism. That's why is YouTube? All right, YouTube is being stupid, because I didn't see that come up in my feed.
You do that.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Answers in Green Lantern.
Answers in Green Lantern.
So yesterday, Jovan Bradley did a thing that he's calling the Gauntlet, and he had a bunch of his debate buddies, Matt Dillahunty, Arden Hart, Luxander, Dalton the Bible Guy, Alec Gunter. He had them all pick a superhero, and then they debated whose superhero was the best superhero. And Luxander picked Omni-Man, and then put on a mustache to match Omni-Man.
Is he a superhero?
I mean, he has superpowers.
Yeah, but he's more a super villain. No spoilers. I'm sorry. I just spoiled the entire thing for everybody. I'm sorry.
I mean, he wipes out the superheroes in like the first episode. It's not that much of a spoiler.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But it's so like Sanders there with this mustache, and Jovan accidentally misgenders it, and And Lex is just like, it must be my very feminine mustache. I lost it. I was like, someone resuscitate me. I'm done. I'm very easily amused. Tangents, I know, but still. Jess knows. It is true.
It is known.
Specifically mentioned Romans 8, where it mentioned all of creation groaning. But then earlier on in the conversation, you said that plants had the ability to die. And so is there another verse where there's a distinction that says animals, yes, did indeed die? Because if you use Romans 8, it seems like it says all of creation, but earlier you removed plants from that.
I didn't remove plants. Remember, I said plants don't die in the same way that we die. Plants wither, plants wilt. They don't necessarily die in the way that we die. But the ground is cursed, so that's clear. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying there, or hear that wrong.
So plants withered before the fall.
I think that's very possible. Yeah, I don't think the Bible doesn't call.
So there was death before.
So there was death. Well, don't forget, this is a man that said that plants aren't alive, right? So he doesn't think that plants are alive in the same way that animals are alive, which is nonsense. I mean, they still have the same kind of bioactivity, right? They still have, cell growth. They still have. It's very strange what Eric thinks is alive and what's not. And you got to wonder what his opinion of fungus is, whether that's alive or not.
I mean, well, there's our convention of the definition of life, which is that it's cellular and it's based on, certain processes and compositions and so forth. But a person could conceivably use a different idiosyncratic definition, a novel definition. Although I don't know how well that would work. Like, you'd have to have a good reason to get anybody else to accept that definition. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's most peculiar.
So that means
the Bible says animals and humans ate plants before the fall, and probably up until the flood. Now, God did destroy them because they were sinning, so who knows? They could have been eating animals.
Wait, up until the flood? I don't understand. Like, if you're saying that the thing that cursed the ground and then cursed animals, didn't he say that the Adam and Eve's sin was to, like, it cursed with death, basically?
Yeah, death comes into the world with whatever the fuck first sin be. It's retrofitted into the story because it's later. I think it's Peter or Paul who says the wages of sin is death, and so they're like, oh, so sin means death.
Yeah,
but no, the earlier chapters don't say that by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Like, death is just part of the natural order. Unless, I mean, the fact that the fruit of the tree of life was even there under a literal interpretation means that death was already part of the equation.
Yes.
If you need a fruit to not die, then
Yes.
death is baked in. But
yeah, so in the original story, and what you can take from the sort of is that people ate of the fruit of life, and so they didn't die. It wasn't that death wasn't a thing. It's just that there was something to alleviate that problem. And then when we got thrown out of the Garden of Eden, we couldn't access that fruit anymore. And what was it? God didn't want us to eat the fruit of life, because once we'd had the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil and the fruit of life, we would become like God. So he said, no, eat out of the garden so you won't have access. And that's their explanation of why things get older and die.
yeah, no more fruit snacks, I guess.
Yeah.
I had a weird dinner and I'm on a lot of medicine.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It's all good. Left-handed Jedi had a question. Jewish tradition, quickening. Right. So there's two different things. There's what we today call the quickening, which is when a developing fetus like starts experiencing neurological activity, and so it starts twitching and kicking and so forth. That's quickening. It's no longer a bundle of cells. It's now a functioning system. It's not developed enough to exist in the outside world, but it is, from a certain point of view, alive. However, the thing you're talking about with the Jewish tradition, I don't know if it's called a quickening, but there is a tradition in Judaism and much of Christianity that a human being, at least, becomes alive when they take their first breath. And there's a biological basis for it too. I wish Ray Comfort would talk about this, because this is one science fact in the biblical tradition. When oxygen first goes into the lungs directly from the atmosphere, it sets off a chain reaction of neurological signals, a cascade of effects, tickles across the brain, waking up the prefrontal cortex for the very first time and sending a signal into the heart that slams shut a chamber between, well, not a chamber, a passage between the ventricles. I am not a medical doctor. These terms are very far in my past.
No, you're fine.
There's a bypass, because the lungs are shut off while you're in the womb. So there's a doorway open between the ventricles as a bypass. When the oxygen hits the lungs, it causes a signal to slam that door shut. So you undergo physiological changes at the moment of first breath, and you are now alive, according to tradition.
Okay.
It's pretty neat.
Before the flood, I don't know exactly what happened to the animals pre-flood, but we know that after the flood, now the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. So,
but we know they ate animals before the flood, because I think it's, what is it, Genesis 7, that says that the animals will be meat to you, right? So we know that, right?
Oh,
so
Eric has not read the Bible. You're assuming Eric has actually read the Bible. I mean, come on now.
He's like his dad. He's memorized a few useful passages, and that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah, so he's referencing the first sort of passage of when God is telling Noah what to do, and he's talking about clean and unclean animals. So as you know, I feel like Nicholas has a way better understanding of the Bible, because clean and unclean are kind of the animals that you can sacrifice or whatever. So like clean animals. So you would have to have death, or else, you know, I mean, to have a sacrificial animal that doesn't die seems horrific to me. You know, there's just a goat running around screaming on fire and able to die sounds pretty horrific in my mind. But you know, this is the Bible. Yeah, I know, right? Sounds like a cursed lie.
I'm gonna have nightmares.
Don't be mean to goats. Come on now.
No, don't. It makes me think of, there was a TV show in the 90s, maybe. Maybe it was even Tales from the Crypt. I can't remember really. But this particular story, it was one of those anthology series where they tell like little bitty stories across multiple episodes and stuff. Anyway, there was this fellow, he wished to like be immortal, but he like botched his wish. He worded it wrong. And so basically his consciousness got trapped in his body even after his body died. So he was like, he was locked in during his own autopsy, which I cannot imagine is a pleasant thing, even if your nerves aren't working. Just, ooh.
Yeah.
Not cool. One thing that is cool, the human Tommy has been a member for a month. Hell yeah. And so Tommy gets an upgraded badge and gets to play with more play with the emojis. Yes, I made a green rectangle. Oh, now I need a blazing goat for an emoji. I'm not promising that. I don't have any. I don't know how I would do that, and I'm not sure I would want to, but it would be funny. On a less absurd note, Jedi has been a member for 28 months. Holy crap. As I said, we're getting close to 3 years, which is why we needed the new badge. So keep an eye out. Some people are going to start to turn into, what the hell is the new one? I think I made it a blue hypergiant. Maybe. I don't know. A bigger star. It'll be neat. Sometime soon. The channel originally monetized in June of 2023. So we're like 2 months away from people starting to be able to cross over into the 3 years. Now everybody's setting goats on fire. Why?
Please don't.
I don't know that I don't believe that's the case. I don't know that the Bible doesn't speak to eating animals.
Genesis 9. Genesis 9. Every
so now
moving
you're
thing
out-
that liveth.
Yeah, now you're after the flood. So that's after flood. That's the only things. And again, stick with scripture. That's the only thing we got for people now having the fear of animals. Genesis chapter 9, verse 3. So he makes a distinction in Genesis 9. He says, as I had given you the plants, now I give you the animals. That's Genesis 9:3. So before this, guys,
Didn't he's confusing so much shit. Now I am not a Dr. Kip. I'm not even Dalton the Bible guy. I am not a Bible scholar. But it occurs to me that the whole be fruitful, multiply, and exercise dominion upon the earth happens in a couple of places, not just after the flood. But maybe I'm mistaken. And also, I don't like the dominion phrasing, but that's what Eric would prefer.
Yeah, everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. Well, I don't know about that. I think that cane toads are not food for us. That leads to very bad things. Very, very bad things.
Yeah, you know. I mean, like, the whole sacrificing Cain and Abel, right? Like, Cain was a fucking farmer, but Abel was a pastoralist and was like killing things to sacrifice critters on. You know what? It's not important.
Yeah, it's really not. But that's okay. I get where you're coming from, though, because so that would suggest that they killed animals to make so this is what Eric is saying. They killed animals to make burnt offerings to God, but they didn't actually eat them, which is kind of weird.
God can eat them, but not you humans.
Right.
It's so fun. Dr. Kip says, Michael Jones has a dog. Everything I ever believed is now in question. I also noticed he's got at least 2 cats over the course of our various parts.
Yeah.
At least
probably
2.
one wife, I think. At least one.
Just says, I now feel an urge to make Embry Goats Ablaze commercial for the channel.
Ablaze. Is that like Chips Ahoy? I don't know what that means.
It could be. Maybe it's a fruit snack and it's just called Goats Ablaze.
Maybe. Yeah, okay. It's
fruit
you know,
snacks.
it's your, do you need a burnt sacrifice? Get Goats Ablaze.
I know. It's neat. I'm tempted to play one of the Astral Pride ads because Jess mentioned it.
Oh, go on.
All right, I'll do the horizontal one because the vertical ones look weird when we're on a horizontal mode. So, just over a minute. In 2024, NASA researcher Rachel Lenz gave the world a flag made from NASA images for Pride Month. On January 20th, 2025, the incoming U.S. administration ordered that artistic union of science and civil rights deleted. So I tracked down the original images it was made from, recreated it, and then added even more wonders of the cosmos to update the flag to the current, more inclusive form. On the anniversary of the inauguration, I released it. And it went viral several times. Now you can get a physical copy of that artwork as a full-sized flag or a large sticker, as well as space artworks of the other pride flags: lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, ace, and new flags being added all the time. Get one for yourself or give them as gifts and celebrate pride, celebrate science, celebrate resistance, and help support a creator fighting for human rights for all humans. Head to astralpride.com. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, I need a person to help me with like advertising, because I've tried TikTok, I've tried the various Facebook properties, the meta stuff, and Reddit. I've been like everywhere I can think of except for X, because we're not giving Elon money no matter fucking what. And I cannot get an ad to run. Like every single where I go, I hit a stone wall that I can't freaking get past. So if anybody's familiar with how to run ads, I'm trying to run ads for these damn things. But also there's clothing. I need to make an ad for that too. Oh, but yay, capitalism. All right. I suppose we should, like, get back to the thing we're doing, probably.
What comes into our mind when we think about God? God made it perfect. Animals and people ate plants. They ate the fruit, the herb, and the seed. That's clear. That's what the scripture says. That's arguing scripture with scripture. Not until after the flood, Genesis 9, do we hear, does God give this idea that now I'm going to give you the animals just as I had given you the plants before. So
yeah, Mike,
to summarize that, Michael's view of there being lots of animal death and
he's not just preaching, he's like just grandstanding. He's taking up all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep talking until someone stops me.
Man eating animals, animals eating animals, pre-Genesis 9 is extra biblical. It's read into the text, trying to bring old earth theistic evolution ideas into the Word of God rather than interpreting scripture with scripture.
But the problem
Michael,
is,
you respond?
He's talking about animals being eaten by humans, right? But we know from the offerings to God in the Cain and Abel story, which was before the flood, that Abel offered like offerings from his flock, while Cain offered fruits and vegetables, basically from the garden. So we know that they were killing animals. So it doesn't take away this idea of animal suffering. It's just you basically said arbitrarily that because they could eat animals since the flood, animals didn't suffer before then. And I don't think that necessarily follows. I think that's a non sequitur. Like, you have to say, hey, this is where it said animals didn't suffer, but they were still being killed. So I don't know what Eric's point is here, because that largely animal suffering, I mean, in modern day, largely animal suffering is caused by humans. I won't disagree with that. But I think that in the past, before civilization really got established, I would say that mostly animal suffering was caused by other animals. So I don't know what this has got to do with anything. I really don't. It doesn't address Michael's point.
I wonder what Eric would make of a Venus flytrap, a thing that's not alive, killing things that are alive.
You're assuming that he's ever heard of or thought about a Venus flytrap. Yeah, no, I wonder what he would think of that as well. Probably something incredibly dumb. That's
what it would make it funny.
Yeah, that's true.
To Eric saying that we didn't eat any animals prior to the flood.
Well, Yeah, there's some issues with that. Sorry, I thought my mic was. Is my mic coming through? Okay, good. Yeah, for a second I thought it was. Okay. Well, for example, not necessarily. What was Abel doing when he offered the flock of his fat of his flock to God? Was he
exactly?
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Hey, good point.
I'm not sure if I should feel proud of us or feel disappointed in us that we thought of the same thing as IP did.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's an obvious question, right?
The meat rot out in the field. That just seems kind of weird. Obviously, he was eating the meat and he's just offering the fat up. And then you have animal skins being made for Adam and Eve in Genesis 3. Where did those come from? Obviously, you have animal death prior to the flood. And again, it goes back to Genesis 1:28. Humans have dominion over animals. And again, this is just a restatement in Genesis 9. The same covenant is there, as even early commentators like Philo have noted. So you actually have animal death already there in Genesis 1.
So,
Eric,
why did God kill the animal in Genesis? In it's not Genesis 1. There's no animal death in Genesis 1. Genesis 3 is where we get the first animal death. God killed an animal to make coats of skin for Adam and Eve. That's the first time you hear of animal death. So, why did God do that? Why did Cain have to? And why were they offering a sacrifice? God had already set up an idea, a concept of a picture of what was to come, and He continued that with the children of Israel. He kind of relaunched this with he did it with Abraham. He's killed.
So he wasn't powerful enough to do it in the first place, or to course correct to make that happen when things started to go awry. He has to put together this freaking mechanism, this mousetrap thing, this Rube Goldberg device in order to achieve his goal, because Eric just keeps making God smaller and smaller and weaker, and it's pretty great.
I just think he keeps making shit up, like, because he's basically saying, "Oh, God did this as a preview for the future," and it's just like, how did you know? Were you there? I don't know how he knows this. He just keeps making assertions. It's very strange.
Oh, where's my? I can't find it. I have a pop-up thing that's
okay.
Ken Ham holding a sign that says "Were you there?" something like that, but it's
okay.
I've too many things in my OBS. It's fine.
An animal with Abraham, and then He relaunched this with the putting of the blood on the doorpost. So no, there's no animal death like that before Genesis 3. And the whole point was, this is sad. This is not normal. This is.
I agree. The things you're espousing are sad and not normal, but also
this is not.
Were you there?
Were you there? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but I laugh that a young Earth creationist is sitting there going, "This is not normal. This is like." Yeah, there's nothing normal about your position. I think for my money, Michael Jones has definitely got the more scientific position, but this is the ridiculousness of the young Earth creationists. They come in, hijack science, try to say that they have a scientific basis for this, and it is absolute nonsense. Like, it's just nonsense.
Yeah, we're just remember, folks, all of science is a conspiracy to get you to deny God for some reason.
Yeah.
Tragic what's happening. An animal has to be killed now to cover you. This if that was around for millions.
God couldn't figure out textiles.
Well, where did the skins come from? He covered them with animal skins. Apparently, there's goats running around without any skin. Like they just got all of their skin removed. What are we talking about here? This is getting stupid. I'm sorry, getting stupid. I misspoke. This is getting stupider. This is getting really dumb. And, for once, it's not Michael Jones' fault. This is all Eric. But look at the way that sort of Eric does this performative. This is so sad and tragic, and animals are running around without any skin on but they didn't die. And what are you talking about, Eric?
Oh, because God couldn't figure out the cotton plant he'd already created, because everything was created in
Yeah.
the beginning. He couldn't take the cotton and make cotton clothing that way. All powerful, knows everything.
Yeah.
Can't figure out textiles.
God can make the universe, but not a loom. Yeah, just can't work it out.
Of years, then who cares? It's
Where
no
does
big deal.
Genesis 3 say it's tragic an animal had to die? Where does Genesis 4 say it's tragic that Abel had to offer some of the fat of his flock? Where does the text say this is the tragic part?
I'm saying that animal death did not exist before that. It is tragic because there had not been animal death before that. Where does it say there's animal death before this?
So
Yeah,
animal
Genesis
death is
1.
immoral, Eric? Is it immoral to kill an animal?
Today, no. Pre-flood, pre-fall, excuse me, they were not. I don't think having dominion meant. Even the phrase that Michael uses is really hard, because now torturing a cat for fun, it's not really wrong.
But if we establish that,
What?
Find out.
Did
Eric
he
has
just
some
say
interesting
that?
ideas about morality.
Wow.
Mhm.
Torturing well, even if we do kill an animal for food or whatever, like I don't think that hunting is right. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody, but I don't I think that you should, at least if you're going hunting, like use the meat for food and the skin for whatever, you know. But I think that we at least make an attempt to end animal life as humanely as possible without suffering, right? Like, you know, there's a big difference between you know, ending a cow's life quickly and torturing a cat. You know, like there's one that's going to cause an incredible amount of suffering, and one, while sort of, you know, not great, at least it ends the life quickly with. I mean, I really hope that when I die, I'm not suffering and being tortured to death. I hope that it is a quick and painless death. That would be nice, you know, because I'm not under any delusion like theists that I'm going to live forever. So, you know, wow.
It's pretty fucking oof. But also do remember that as a not just active supporter of the current US regime, but a person who actually spent large sums of money to make sure we got the current US regime, Eric Hovind believes that torturing children is good. It should be done in certain circumstances, such as religious liberty. Like, just because you think your God said so, then yes, you should torture children, according to Eric.
Well, I mean, the Bible even, I mean, if we're talking about the Old Testament, and we obviously are, Genesis and, you know, or that, the Old Testament does say that if your son is drunk and, you know, insolent to the parents, disrespectful for the parents, you should take them before the temple and stone them. You can't allow evil to live among you. So, you know, I really would not take my moral imperatives from the Old Testament, you know, about what we should and shouldn't do. So part of me goes, you know, it's a fair question. Part of me goes, yeah, like you're referring to the Old Testament for your moral prescriptions is about. So even from the moderator saying, oh, because the Bible says this, then you think it's harmful to and can I just add, it's a really weird format that you have, you know, Nicholas here doing a gotcha for one of the interlocutors. It's kind of weird, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
what are they? Bible
fairness,
dingers or something?
Yeah, Bible dingers. They're not exactly serious people.
Right.
You know who is a serious person? Well, okay, I retract that.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Lord of Shenaniganery and member for 32 months, like right on the edge of that 3-year mark. I was talking earlier about how there's a bad 3 years now, and I forget what the hell I made it, but there is one.
Right.
But Chester says, I have a looming doubt in Eric's argument.
Oh, a loom pun. Well done. I wasn't aware you can make a loom pun, but there you go.
Absolutely. Delightful.
If
was
we
gonna happen?
establish that killing an animal today is not immoral, we would be contradicting ourselves if we said it was immoral back. It was immoral back then, but now it's moral.
Not
What makes it
necessarily.
immoral?
Contradicting the
What makes-
nature of sin.
What's that?
Not necessarily. So, like, I'm not going to go into moral relativism so much. A lady fossil goblin. That is such an accurate description. It just amazing. What's your goblin, Jess? No. Don't get me sidetracked. Don't get me sidetracked. Okay, so just because morality changes due to some circumstance, it doesn't mean that it's automatically A, subjective, or B, wrong in some way. Yes, moral relativism is a thing, but that more is morality depends on circumstance kind of thing. But, so objective morality can be based upon, or you can say it is based upon something objective. That objective thing changes because everything in our universe changes. The morality can change. However, so you've got to separate absolute morality, which never changes, right? So absolute morality would say, hey, if it was immoral back then, it's immoral now. It's immoral under any circumstances whatsoever. It's immoral regardless of how the universe, it is just immoral. That's different than objective. For instance, a boulder can be in different places at different times, right? It can, earthquake rolls down a hill or whatever. The position of that boulder is objective, but it's not absolute. It isn't there forever, right? So it's important to distinguish these two. Because I've once had a debate about absolute morality, and he basically said, well, you was using terms for objective, and it's like, no, absolute's such a higher standard. So I think Nicholas is applying absolute morality. I don't even know if Eric thinks that absolute morality is a thing. I don't know if that's the case.
I don't know if Eric's thinking is sophisticated enough to be able to tell the difference.
That's true. So all of
I'm
that
not sure
may
if
have been.
can tell the difference, and his whole thing is philosophy, ostensibly.
Yeah.
What makes it immoral now?
I don't think it's immoral to eat a chicken. I don't think that's
What about
immoral.
torturing an animal? Is it immoral? Is it immoral to do the exact same thing that a tiger does to a zebra and literally catch it alive and rip it apart?
So the food chain is immoral. Is that what you're saying?
No.
God created an immoral world. Oh no.
Well, I mean, God never created an immoral. We get blamed for that. Don't forget. I mean, by we, I mean Adam and Eve get blamed for that. It's all their fault, hence our fault. So, the fallen world we get blamed for it. But I mean, wasn't it God that sort of said, now you will eat animals? So isn't it his choice? Couldn't he have said, hey, it's a fallen world, but still don't eat animals? Couldn't he have said that?
Yeah, much like he said, don't eat shellfish.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yes.
I kind of wonder, did he say no eating animals because he wanted to keep the animals for himself? And now he says don't eat shellfish for the same reason? He's like, you know what? You can have the beef. The lobster is mine.
Yeah, but he doesn't like pork. God doesn't dig on swine. Yeah. But it's funny that all of the things that God says not to eat are usually the products which spoil easily in, say, the ancient times when they didn't have refrigeration.
Why didn't God give them first? He didn't give them textiles, then he didn't give them refrigeration. I'm starting to think this God, he's not really that useful.
Right. Actually, one of the first refrigeration principles was done in Australia. Not surprisingly, because they had something called a Coolgardie safe, and it was basically a like a square of cloth that was hung from a tree, like in the wind, and they used to wet the sides of the cloth kind of thing, making it cooler and therefore storing food better. Really, really good idea.
Neat. It kind of
Yeah.
different but similar. Reminds me of the cooling towers that they built in homes in the desert in many, many days gone by. Because they figured out that hot air rises. And so if they built a tower, then the hot air from their homes would go up into the tower and cooler air would come in to the ground floor. And it, pretty neat.
God has now given us that. God has said it is pre-fall. It wasn't the case. That was wrong. God told him to eat the plants, the herb, and the seed. So yes, it would have been immoral then.
So I just want to say real quick, the Bible is pretty clear, Proverbs 12:10, that the righteous has regard for the life of his animals. So animal cruelty, no one is promoting that here. The Bible doesn't promote that. Just want to be very clear for anyone listening. That's not.
I mean, rhetorically, that's not a bad move, because he's like, you know what, we're completely off the subject of the debate, but I can see
absolutely.
the moral high ground here.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and it's just so Eric Hovind is basically making this weird case that, well, if you believe that animals suffered before this point, God can't do convenient and completely ordinary things that humans can do. Absolutely. Hi, Maya. It's a pleasure to see you, as always. Like, you know, if God allowed, like, he's just conflating it with, you know, pure animal suffering. Like, you know, the thing is that I myself will advocate for ending the suffering of a human when they are, you know, beyond saving, and you know, all they have to look forward in their life is pure suffering and pain. You know, so euthanasia is a contentious subject in religious circles. I think that most atheists would agree that if someone has a terminal disease where they're just going to live their life in pain with consent, with them saying, hey, I want to end it all, I would go for that option. So, Eric's, this is just a red herring, right? Like, because we're talking about the death of animals and eating animals, and then he's changed it to, well, torturing animals. That wasn't the original point, number one. And number two, you know, it doesn't back up your point of, well, animals didn't suffer back in the day. It doesn't, because you're talking about what humans are allowed to do, and most of animal suffering before civilization comes from other animals.
And earthquakes and very aggressive plants.
Yes. Very aggressive plants, yeah.
What's the one more?
You know, it always shocked me. I think it was the honeydew or something. It's got like these bits of stickiness on all of these tendrils that sort of, you know, grab flies kind of thing. Seems horrible, you know, like, what a way to go. You're basically stuck to a plant that you know, it doesn't close around you or anything. You're basically stuck to it, and it slowly dissolves you. It seems absolutely, you know, like horror film stuff. A lot of the stuff that plants do is kind of like horror film-esque, you know, and fungus is horror film-esque. I mean, the cordyceps, you know, fungus is absolutely horrifying, absolutely horrifying.
Mm-hmm. That's why we got so many of our own horrors out of just that one fungus.
Right.
We've got the girl with all the gifts and the boy on the bridge. We've got the Last of Us, and I think there's another one that uses cordyceps too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a lot of us used it because it's just so, they basically zombify insects and make them, or snails. That was the other one. There's a fungus that infects snails and makes them go to the top of branches and basically waggle their you know, extremities around to attract attention from birds. the birds come down, grab them, eat them, and then the life cycle of the fungus infects their poop essentially, and then that infects other insects, and that's the life cycle of it. But it literally just basically turns the insect or the snail into a zombie. Like, it is just taken over by this fungus, and it gets turned into a zombie doing what the fungus wants, not what it wants, which is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, it's first of all, there's nothing that makes us immune. These species of fungus, they are adapted for the specific species that they work on, but there's no reason there couldn't be one that works on humans. And that's terrifying. But also the fact that a fungus that doesn't even have neurons has figured out how to hotwire and drive ambulatory multicellular life forms by manipulating what? Hormonal signals, neuronal signals. We don't even know what the hell. I'm sure someone knows exactly how it interfaces with their nervous system, but I don't know, and most people don't know, and so that's scary too. Like, if our nervous systems are so easily hijacked, then what are we? Just the illusion of an operating system, a pretend consciousness overlaid on instinct and shit?
Well, yeah, so you would think that humans aren't susceptible to that, but if you are aware, there is a parasite called toxoplasmosis. I think I'd have to look up the full name for it, but it's a toxoplasmosis. It's like a parasite that reproduces in cats, and it can affect humans. And what it does is it basically rewires the brain so that you find like the smell of cat urine pleasurable. Yes, correct, Megan Fox. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're thinking along the same lines as me. This will cause people to get basically turned into a crazy cat lady. They will get more and more cats because they want to keep cats around. It actually infects mice and makes them attracted to cat urine. So they will become easy prey for cats, and that's how the parasite continues its life cycle. But when it infects humans, they will have the same effect. Mouse, rat, and human biology being very similar. So we kind of think, oh, well, humans wouldn't be affected by that. Well, no, but there is toxoplasmosis, which can affect humans. And a shocking amount of people in the world are infected with toxoplasmosis. I think it's about 10% or something along those lines. Yeah, Toxoplasmosis gondii or Gondi.
Damn it, Gandhi.
It's always Gandhi. It's always Gandhi.
It's a shame. One by mentions gut bacteria. Yes, we've known for some time that gut bacteria has some kind of influence on mood and so forth. More and more research has been mounting up. Apparently, there's a lot of nervous system interfaces scattered throughout the guts. The bacteria. It's basically like remote controls in the guts that the bacteria know how to push the buttons for.
Yeah. You can get hungry because your gut bacteria sends signals for something to your brain. Like, this whole idea of what makes us gets insanely complicated when we start talking about symbiosis and symbiotic organisms within the human body, and whether mitochondria is actually us or a foreign entity within our systems that just decided to work with us because it's convenient. It's very strange. And I think that's why, sort of, if you look at things, there's sort of substance ontology in philosophy. It sort of is the old Aristotelian oh, this is a thing and that's that thing and that is all encompassed and that is it. But there's other forms of looking at things like process ontology, which sort of says, hey, things are part of interconnected systems that are always changing over time. So it's harder to work with, but I think that process ontology is way more accurate to our situation.
That makes sense. There's a lot. There's so much cool stuff. And yes, I have not seen the film either. I kind of want to, but also the book was so good, I kind of don't because I worry that they'll fuck it up.
Well, I think Jess is sort of saying they did fuck it up a little bit. Yeah, the film with Matt. That's what I've heard. The film was really average, and that's why I've never seen it, because the book was frigging awesome, absolutely awesome. But mind you, like, because the book was written in first person to the main character, the girl in it, I think that would be so hard to adapt into a film. Because the film is necessarily third person kind of thing. Unless you're talking, I think there's only been a couple of first person films, and it's been, I think, what was that action film? I never saw it, but it was all first person, which was strange.
I'm not sure. I was trying to work out how to do filming like that, because like you can't.
Hardcore Henry.
A what now?
Hardcore Henry.
Oh, neat.
It was a first person film. So it was like an action film that was all first person. So it was shot like a first person shooter video game kind of thing. I never saw it, but I'm aware of it.
It's pretty neat. Megan Fox mentions the Blair Witch Project, which is it kinda, because someone was always holding the camera.
Yeah, but the camera isn't considered a person. I think I would slightly argue with that. I think I would slightly argue with that, because the main protagonist it's showing so when we're considering a story, we're looking at the viewpoint, whether it's first, second, or third person. I kind of think that would be second person, which second person is somebody else telling the story of something, not from the protagonist's viewpoint. So I kind of disagree, but you're not wrong. I get what you're saying. Yes, it's kind of first/second person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of in between. But on the Girl with All the Gifts, it's not just a zombie story. And like that's why it's fascinating. Ooh, what if child zombie, but also aware? And what if the children, and yada yada. And like, yeah, that's great. That's really cool. But the primary literary value isn't the fact that it's an interesting story written from a novel perspective. This is what it's like to be discriminated against. That's the point of the story.
Yeah.
when the humans around you think you don't count as human.
Yes. Yep.
What's happening here. And I think this goes back to my main point. If God can give predation because of the fall, animals did not sin. It was not their fault. But if he can then create on the young earth creationist model, world of predation, because of something separate, animal sin. Again, why are they so upset about God using, millions of years of animal evolution that would include death, if it's perfectly moral for God to then create a world after the fall where there is going to be predation? Why do animals have to suffer because of what humans did? They think this is somehow getting themselves out of the issue, but I mean, their emotional appeal to all the millions of years of death, again, it still is going to affect the young earth creation. It's just in a different way, because God is directly prescribing this whole system, and he's not even saying it's bad. So like, I'm confused at how this is a problem.
Oh, my sweet summer child, Michael, when you say millions of years of predation, he doesn't believe in millions of years. It's not like Eric went out and he went, oh, God wouldn't take millions of years of suffering, therefore that's why we know the earth is young, right? That's not what he's doing. What Eric is doing is going, I believe the earth is young because Bible says, and that's how he's been raised, and he's had this drilled into him all of his life. What can I find to make that correct? Oh, if the earth was old, there'd be millions of years of predation and suffering. Therefore, my bias has to be correct, right? He's working backwards from his conclusion. And this is what a lot of people don't understand about young earth creationists. They're not looking around and going, oh, that is evidence, this is evidence, and where does that... That's not what they're doing. They've got the answer first, and he is looking to anything he can to justify that explanation that he believes in already. So, yeah, like Michael's just thinking, you know, you're not going to reason with him like that.
As the saying goes, you can't reason someone out of a position they didn't use reason to get into.
Right.
And Eric on an emotion kick right here. He's saying, well, if your thing is right, then the world is horrible and full of pain and suffering and always has been. Therefore, your thing can't be right. Because I don't like that possibility.
Yes, and that's, you know, but I don't think it's that possibility that led him to the conclusion that the earth is young. I think he presupposes that the earth is young, because don't forget, Eric's a presuppositionalist. Most of his core beliefs are founded upon a faith, like a dogmatic assertion of what they are, right? And then he's going back to say why, you know, let's find out what supports that belief in the first place. It's the exact opposite of science, which obviously Michael Jones is a lot more scientific than Eric is, even though Eric claims he's, you know, a premier scientist kind of thing. You know, just as a tangent, you know what irritated me the other day? Like Donnie's putting up clips from Standing for Truth, because Donnie annoys me. I mean, I like the guy. He still annoys me occasionally because he's going PhD scientist, like disagrees with evolution. And it's like, that suggests his, you know, he's in some field of biology. Like, it was Jerry Bergman, and I know his PhD is like in philosophy or something like it, you know, he kind of makes a big deal that he's a PhD scientist. But what he doesn't say is that he has a master's in like science or something, just general science. And his PhD is in something like an art, like philosophy. It's like, why do you do this? Like, it is so misleading. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my... I had to share that because that annoyed the hell out of me.
That's fair. I mean, that's a trick they all do.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there may be others, but to my knowledge, there's only 2 PhD creationists who speak in their own field. And that's Jason Lyle, who makes up bullshit about astrophysics as an astrophysicist, and John Sanford, who is an actual plant geneticist and is still preaching something genetic entropy. All the rest of them are like, oh yeah, I have a PhD in genetics. Let's talk about geology, you know?
Theistic evolutionists, but not young earth creationists.
Michael, God didn't recreate the world after the fall. The fall influenced the ground, it influenced the animals, and it influenced man and woman. The fall did that.
Sounds like a shitty design. If humans eat one wrong fruit, the moose turn evil.
That's frightening. Moose frightened me, man. Like, seriously, wow.
I went to Yellowstone 10 years ago. Wowzers. I was in the area for treasure hunting. I was trying to track down Forrest Fenn's legendary treasure hidden out in the Rockies somewhere. And I swung by Yellowstone since I was in the area. And one of the rest areas that I drove past, there happened to be an elk there. Apparently people had like a salty snack on the table or something, and an elk had like taken over this table and was licking the salt off of the wood. And the rangers were trying to keep everybody back because it is a wild elk.
Yes.
But of course, there were people who were like, oh, he's a herbivore. It's fine. It was not fine. He fucked them up.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, don't approach any wild animal, people. Like, wild animals, it always, you know, it really scares me. You know, people approaching wild animals to sort of, you know, just pet them or touch them or whatever. They're wild animals. They do not know your intentions and will probably defend themselves. I mean, even kangaroos, people see the kangaroo videos and they go and try to pet don't do that. They are absolutely terrifying. and people always reference the one where the guy punches the kangaroo in the face, and A, that was hilarious, but B, he was trying to save the kangaroo, his dog, from being drowned by the kangaroo, because what kangaroos will do a lot of the time is grab something and then drag them underwater, and they are really strong.
Mm-hmm. They're battle deer.
Kangaroos?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, they're very distantly related, of course, because of the marsupial thing and whatnot, but
they're a lot more dangerous than deer.
Oh, considerably.
Yeah.
But the point is, a lot of these I don't even know what to call them, these rabbitoids that grew overly large, they know how big they are, and they know humans are squishy. Do you suppose earlier today I was learning that Pakicetus was probably a mangy, scruffy crocodile analog in mammal form?
I saw that on Jess's channel, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out was it's related to, and it sort of had a evolution with the Maya, the Myacetus, which was a bit further back. But a bit further back, you'll get the split between the cetaceans and the hippo. Like, so hippo is kind of like a cousin to the whale, and hippos are terrifying, just terrifying.
Mm-hmm. I've seen a few videos of hippos chasing humans, and
yeah.
When I was little, I thought the game Hungry Hungry Hippos was silly. I'm like, yeah, sure, they'll like nom entire watermelons at a time, but they're basically just big herbivores. Like many mammals, they know they're bigger than you and that humans are squishy.
Yep. And they're very territorial.
Or saying God created it this way. That's a sick God.
You got it, Eric. You got something right.
Mm-hmm.
If God created it that way, he's a sick God. Mm-hmm. Stop clock twice a day.
God did create
with the consequences of sin.
God did create the fallen world a certain way. He didn't need to. So I mean, like you gotta change entire digestive systems now for you actually to have predation instead of eating plants. Because a cat cannot live off of a vegetarian diet. We know that cats need meat or they die really quickly. So you do have God actually making the world a certain way because of our actions.
Okay. So what I've had this argument with his father, right? So when you bring up sort of the evolution of the oblate carnivores, they're called carnivores that have to have meat. They need a certain amount of protein in order to survive. He brings up a lion, because don't forget, if you bring up the ark, what did the oblate carnivores survive on, right? Because, big cats, lions, otters, they can't eat vegetarian and survive kind of thing, right? What did they eat on this ark, right? That's the question. He will bring up a lion that survived during World War II fed on cabbage. What he omits and doesn't mention is that they had to give this lion a lot of eggs as well to get its protein. So he still doesn't address the question of where all that comes from. It is a bit of a problem. So Michael isn't wrong, except he is slightly to say, hey, they need to eat meat. No, they need an amount of protein. It can be from other sources, but he's not wrong. Like their digestive system, they can't just eat grass and survive. Like that's not possible. Cats will be unhealthy and die if they don't get an amount of protein. So yeah, but are you considering an egg to be an animal? Is conception the start of life? Is that a living animal? Is it not? If it's unfertilized, I don't know. It all gets kind of wild.
Andrew says, I don't know if cats will die very quickly on a vegetarian diet. It might take a while.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, we've had issues of vegan people giving their pets, like dogs and cats, a vegan diet, and it is just so, like, that is not what their systems are designed to handle. You know, a cat, but Aunt Jo's probably right. It won't be very, very quickly, but they will start to be ill and suffer very quickly. You know, like oblate kind of. Yeah, I think it's an obligate carnivore. I think I am misspeaking that. Thanks, Jer.
This is why I love doing lives. It's like,
yeah,
y'all are so much fun.
Correct me real time. Obligate carnivore. Yes, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry, Jer. I'm so glad Jer's around to keep me honest.
Making the world full of predation on your model, just like mine. So I don't see why this is a problem.
But your model says that God did it that way to begin with and called it very good. That's the distinction. You're saying that the death and struggle and suffering, and you're ignoring scriptures that say the lion will dwell with the lamb, the leopard and the young lion. They're not referring to creation. They're saying God's going to make the world back to the way that it was in the Garden of Eden, back to the perfect world. And you're saying that world never existed.
Again, Isaiah 11 is not talking about the Garden of Eden. These are reversing curse texts like Leviticus 26. Even John Benson will note that. This is not talking about Eden.
It's a reversing curse text. I love to hear
the reversing cursing. Oh, yeah.
Reversing cursing. I love some reversing cursing. It's my favorite thing to do. Absolutely. Isn't a reverse curse a blessing? Isn't that a blessing? A reverse curse? I don't know. I don't know the...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess so, because you've got, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, Hovind's so close. He's so close. But, you know, I feel like Michael could just pin Eric here by going, hey, if God decided to make a world where predation is a thing from the start, who are you to question that that's not good? Like, he could out sort of virtue signal almost. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a word that means out, Christian signal, kind of him going, how dare you question that God's design isn't good? You know, if animals all preyed upon one another and it's such a fantastic ecosystem and it's necessary for God to do what he wants to do, who are you to say that that's not good?
Evil God, I'm telling you.
I mean, God presumably had, you know, parasites, you know, induce toxoplasmosis within people to, you know, be attracted to cat urine. Apparently that's part of the curse, or that was around from the start and presumably good. I don't know which.
I was thinking the other way around with the parasites. I'm like, you're gonna process your digestive products considerably faster with certain parasites.
Yeah.
Hear that. That's beautiful. So that means pre-curse, pre-fall. It's just the way the lion was dwelling with the lamb.
But that wasn't the curse in Genesis 3. It's the curse in Leviticus 26.
It's going all the way back to the creation of the world. The lion shall dwell. The lion wasn't dwelling with the lamb in Leviticus 26. That was happening in the Garden of Eden.
Where does it say that in Genesis 1, 2, or 3?
All the animals. God gave every herb for meat. Everything was vegetarian before the flood.
Again, where does it say the wolf was laying with the lamb in Genesis 1, 2, or 3?
It says every animal had the herb for meat. Every animal ate vegetation.
That's okay, so it doesn't say what I'm asking you. That was the point.
It says that the meat, what the animals ate, was vegetation. It's exactly what it says. If all the animals eat vegetation, the lamb doesn't have to worry about the lion. It doesn't have to run away. It's not worried about it eating it. It's eating vegetation. They're sitting down chewing on something together. It's no big deal.
Yeah, so he's talking about
This
Genesis
is not
1.
even answering my.
So he's talking about Genesis 1, verse 29. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. And to all of the beasts of the earth, and all of the birds of the sky, and to all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so, right? So he's basically saying, hey, all of these animals existed, no evolution, but they all ate meat. Now, I just want to point out the sheer ridiculousness of an eagle on a vegetarian diet. You know, what is an eagle eating at that point? You know, it's got those sharp talons for grasping at pumpkins and the beak for ripping open artichoke. Like, I don't, like, you know, when you understand evolution and the way that it works, this is absurd. This is absurd. There is no possible way something like a raptor, a bird of prey, can chew up vegetation. Because don't forget, when you have a digestive system, it's not about just the digestive system. You have to have the digestive system, the molars for crushing it down. You know, there's so much that goes into digesting something with a strong cell wall like plant matter, right? You can't just have a eagle rip apart a celery and then digest it.
I detect a problem.
What's the problem?
Just for funsies, I wanted to look up what do these scholars propose eagles did eat in the Garden of Eden. Like, what's their official answer?
No. Yeah.
And well, it doesn't actually say. There doesn't seem to be a consensus or even any serious research into the topic, which makes sense because it's not a serious question. But
it isn't really. Yeah.
What it does say is that eagles weren't classified as unclean until Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14 due to their status as scavengers or predators. According to Eric, that did not happen until after the flood, but the animals that were to be brought onto the ark, it was a pair of every animals or 7 pairs for clean animals.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. I've mentioned before, how was Noah to know what was clean or unclean when the rules of what's clean and unclean don't get handed down until Moses's time?
Right.
But never mind that.
Mm.
If a thing only becomes unclean when it becomes a predator, which is post-flood, then how could they be unclean when clean or unclean when Noah's putting them in the ark pre-flood?
No, I don't think that was the definition of what was clean and unclean. I believe that the unclean animals were ones that you didn't sacrifice and the clean ones were the ones that you did. So they would have put 2 of pigs in there, for instance. You know, like they don't prey on things, but they still would put 2 of them, 2 of camels, 2 of elephants, you know. But the clean ones were the ones like goats, sheep, oxen, you know, the ones that they sacrificed were the clean animals.
Maybe there's multiple ways to be unclean. All right.
Yeah, it wasn't based upon predation. It was based upon, you know, clean and unclean. It's a bit hazy at what is and what isn't. But I think, and you know, hopefully Dr. Kip can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's based upon whether they were suitable for sacrifice or not. So basically, they were just what God liked to, you know, get burnt sacrifices of.
What the aroma pleasing unto the Lord.
And it says pleasing to his nostrils as well, which suggests that God has nostrils, which is weird.
Quite so. Now I want a scented candle. Damn it. Where did I put all those things?
Oh.
An aroma pleasing unto the ember.
An aroma pleasing unto ember's nostrils.
Question. You're saying they were laying down, but I'm in. you're saying I add to the text, but you're adding this to the text in this point because you're trying to read that into the whole issue of Genesis, like 128 to 131. So again, if you're going to accuse me of adding the text, I'm going to point out places where you have to add to the text. And so again, it's always going to be negotiating with the text at this point.
Is it adding to the text to say when God made everything, it was very good. There was no death because sin hadn't entered into the world. These are straight from Scripture. No death because sin had not entered.
Well, no, you are adding to Scripture there because it doesn't say that in that Scripture.
Correct.
Into
It
the
doesn't
world.
say there was no
Creation
death. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
was not fallen. It was not corrupted. It wasn't suffering. All the animals and man were vegetarian. Now,
No, it doesn't say that.
that's the facts. No, that's I did that, all I did was listed the facts. Those are
He's
literally
got a
facts.
weird
That's
idea of what facts are. Like, he has got a weird idea of what facts are.
He certainly does. It's true. Dr. Kipp says sacrifices must have a functional role in the economy, items of value. This is why some animals are acceptable while others are not. So we don't need 30 to 50 feral hogs. What we need is an unblemished firstborn calf.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but see, I don't see in the Bible where it says that animals didn't die. It said that humans would die if they ate from the fruit. So I think that IP is actually on firmer ground here, that is not, like, you have to read that into it, that nothing died rather than humans didn't die, right? Because the curses that God put on humans, or the serpent or anything like that, or the ground, it doesn't say now you will die animals. It doesn't change that status for them. So, I don't know where, I know where Hovind's getting it from. He's reading it into it, but I think IP is actually has firmer ground by saying, hey, yeah, okay, you're accusing us of reading things into the text, but so are you. I think he's right. I think that, he is correct. Hovind's reading stuff into it as well. Yeah.
He absolutely, I mean, it's in fact, he's not just reading stuff in, he's countermanding what the Bible does say, right? Like, because when God gives his warning about eating the fruit of knowledge, he says, on that day you will die. If death didn't already exist, that sentence would be meaningless. How would Adam possibly understand that if there weren't already death,
But I think that Hovind does have a point where he says that, hey, in Genesis 1, it says, it gives every green plant to the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky. I kind of do agree with him, but it doesn't say that they won't die. Like, it just says, so I think that he's got a point where he's saying, hey, the Bible says that originally in the garden, all the animals were vegetarian. I think he does have a point about that. As absurd as it is, right? He does have a point about that. But his point to say, but the animals didn't die, I don't think anywhere in the Bible it says that. I think he's adding that.
Most definitely. And also, kind of goes without saying at this point, but they're not actually talking about evolution.
Well, they are in a way. They are in a way, because Hovind's stance is, well, you're saying there was all of this animal suffering for all the days before Noah's Ark and into the past and billions of years. God wouldn't do that, so it can't be right. Or my idea of God wouldn't do that, so it can't be right. Which is just weird.
It's such a wild thing, having these grown men talking about their favorite fairy tale and, like, projecting their own concept of what a god could or should be, and trying to interface it with this book that says different things and reconciling those. And they both have these different projections.
Well, I want to push back on that, because that's not unusual, right? You can get two grown men argue about the traits that Superman should have, right? And then talk about the comics. The weird part is that both of them think that it's absolutely real. That's the weird part.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
because
we
when
could absolutely argue.
yeah,
In fact,
we,
recently I heard and not when Dalton Bible Guy was trying to defend Superman as the best superhero, but before that, there was someone was talking about how Superman has evolved, how in 1938 he was faster than a speeding bullet, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and more powerful than a locomotive. But by the 1960s, he could not only fly, but fly faster than the speed of light. Like, he gained a lot of power.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he lost a lot of power as well, because some of the things he could do in sort of the Silver Age of comics, like at one point he had the power to create miniature Supermen from his hands that could had all the powers that he did. So at one point they sort of overpowered him and went, no, that's ridiculous, and took those powers away. So he evolved in a backwards direction as well. I mean, I don't use de-evolved usually because it's not a thing, but he evolved certain abilities and then evolved out of them because they were, well, stupid, really. But what's really funny is the way that he evolved with, say, Schneider and what he did, right? Because he sort of set Superman up as a Jesus analogy, right? That he was a chosen person, come back, died, returned to life, all this kind of thing. And that's how he set him up, not realizing that Superman was written by two Jewish guys originally, the very first one, who weren't. Superman is not a Jesus analogy. He's a Moses analogy. Infant, in danger, sent to another place, by himself, who can rescue its population from its circumstances. Like, everything about it is a Moses analogy, which is fine, and okay, but it was also two Jewish people that had fled the Holocaust, so they were doing a thing about a person being in a different place, and sort of fish out of water kind of thing. So that was the origin.
Yeah. And I believe, if I recall my lore correctly, they chose the name Superman specifically because the Germans were calling themselves Supermen and persecuting the Jews.
Yes.
And they were like, no. This is a super.
If those are the facts, where am I adding to it?
Again, I asked you, you said Isaiah 11, that talk about the wolf laying down with the lamb, it doesn't say lion, it's a common misconception, was happening in the Garden of Eden. And all I asked is, where does it say that in Genesis 1, 2, or 3? That was my whole point of this question. And again, if you're going to bring up Genesis 1:28 again, I will refer back to Joshua John Van Ee's dissertation on death in the garden, where he points out that it's a restatement of the covenant we see in Genesis 9. The difference is Genesis 1 is from the human perspective, Genesis 9 is the animal's perspective. But you still have the fear and dread of the animals then in Genesis 1, and humans are given animals for whatever purposes they need, or animals are given humans for whatever
Where
purposes
is the fear and the dread of animals in Genesis 1? Where is the fear and the dread of animals?
Again, I just told you, it's because Genesis 9 is a restatement of the covenant in Genesis 1.
I'm not asking
just
you
from the human
perspective.
I love it when they fight over verses. Oh my goodness. But Eric was like, he was doing the thing his father does, and he heard a keyword, and so he was picking through to find a specific slide and wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Perspective.
You're doing the same thing. I'm reading Isaiah. I'm reading verses like this, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and I'm going, God he's basically saying the world is bad, it's cursed, I'm going to make it new, here's what I'm going to do. And yes, I'm referring back, I'm allowing this to help me understand what happened. And you're saying, well, Genesis 9 is allowing me to help understand what happened in Genesis 1. I'm like, you're calling the kettle black when it's the pot calling the kettle black. It just
Exactly. We're both doing it. That's my point. So no one's taking the plain reading of the text. That's exactly my point. Thank you.
I think we can wrap up with this one point. And say that many people have many different hermeneutics. And that's the point that Michael is trying to say, that he's not trying to add to the text. We all have our own hermeneutic, And that's kind of how this discussion wraps up here. You have one hermeneutic, Michael Jones has the other, and you've tried to show how his view is.
The problem comes that if you're using hermeneutics to interpret the Bible, sure, like, I get you, and it can tell us a lot about what people at the time thought if one is correct. But these guys are applying it directly to the world around us, saying, hey, which interpretation do we use to analyze the world around us? Now, without using science or any empirical data to be able to say which one is probably correct, how do you actually distinguish between the two? This is the problem with theology in general, giving you statements about the world around you or the history of things or any kind of influence over things that have happened in the past. If these two guys disagree with how they're interpreting the Bible, how do you decide between them?
Right. How do we know who's got it closer to correct? When it's just my interpretation versus your interpretation.
Right.
My vibes. Are you convinced by my vibes? Oh, Guard has it. Epic rap battle.
Epic rap battle.
I mean, it's either that or giant robots. I'm fine with either. Oh, goodness. I wonder if they actually are going to wrap up, because there's less than 10 minutes left in the video, but I'm not sure if, like, they end and then, like, so what are you doing next week? Somewhat unrelated note, IP also had the same debate with Kent Hovind.
Oh, really? That would have been
I'm not saying that's next
absolute
week.
crap show.
No doubt. But I've got it in my video inventory, so it may be coming sometime in the future if we all live long enough.
Yeah, maybe.
How evolution cannot be in the Bible, but what he's saying is it's compatible. He's not necessarily saying that your way is wrong. What he's saying is that it's compatible.
Right.
Would you
That's
say
exactly? I'm not saying Eric's interpretation is wrong. I'm just.
But you could both be wrong. That's it's not just my way or Yahweh. It's you could both be wrong.
Well, yeah. And I mean, but I think that when we're talking about right and wrong or truth statements or stuff like that, it kind of is the nature of propositions that some propositions will be closer to the truth, the actuality of things, or the ontology of things than others will be, right? Like, this is where you get the sort of gray area of, well, the politician kind of told the truth, but it wasn't exactly right. Like, they can say the truth while still omitting a whole bunch of stuff. Specificity is important when it comes to truth claims, basically. So I think that Michael obviously is closer to truth than Eric is, but Eric is, I mean, he comes from a place of, this is the way it is. Nothing will change your mind. You assume that it's true against, use your faith against all available evidence. And I don't think Michael is coming from the same place. I think he is coming from, well, there is overwhelming evidence for this. How does it fit with my Bible? Right? Like, they're two totally different approaches. So I think when we're talking about who's closer to the actuality of the world, I think Michael Jones absolutely is. I think he absolutely is.
Sadly, this has been a funny debate, but I really don't like that I have to side with Michael Jones.
Me too. But, I mean, if it's Michael Jones or Eric Hovind, who has a firmer grasp on reality, I think that Michael Jones, hands down. I think that Eric Hovind says the most ridiculous stuff ever. I mean, presups usually don't have a firm grasp on reality. They will say the most absurd things. I was in in a discussion. I think it was yesterday, about sort of Christianity with a pre-supper, and he was kind of like, oh, I think ideas are real things, like, so Superman is an actual real thing. And it gets absurd. And I threw the plumbus at him, and he's sort of saying, yeah, they exist, not the same as things, but they do exist for real somewhere in this sort of, almost platonic state. And it's like, this is absurd. This is absurd.
Imagination.
Yeah.
It's also reality. I mean, some people are still trapped in the 7th grade where they're like, reality is based on your perception. You imagining something makes it real.
Yeah.
Kind of. Probably. I don't know.
Maybe I should grab that and put it up. But if anyone wants to see that on my channel, just let me know. I can grab that and put it up if you do want.
I mean,
I'm willing to take requests.
Yeah, if you think it would be fun, I guess. Like, either interesting, enlightening, or funny, But there's, yeah.
It's a good criteria.
Like if it's just I want to pull my hair out. I spent a long time growing this. I don't want to pull it out.
Making the case that there are different interpretations of the text, and everyone is going to have to add to the text one way or another. We even get to the flood account, which I can show that, or Genesis 17:17, with regards to the genealogies. But I mean, my whole point is, like, it's just compatible. There are many different ways to understand this. We are all Christians. We all are affirming essential core doctrines. No one should be saying that the other person has a different God, and that's my issue.
Can we conclude there, Eric? Can we conclude there?
What comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. And the theistic evolution God, as has been shown by atheism, as has been shown by...
The moms are trying to wrap things up, and Eric's like, no, I have to preach more.
Yeah, I did. But this is the thing. This is the weird part. The most important part about who you are is not what you think about God, right? Like, who will actually sit there and go, well, in my life, the most important thing, Jeffrey Bandama believes in God, so that's the most important thing about that. No, absolutely not. This is ridiculous. I'm sure that Eric Hovind would, he wouldn't live like that. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't live in that way. Like, oh, my father believes in the same God as I do, therefore he's a great guy. No, Eric doesn't believe that. No, of course not. What you think about God is the most important thing about you. No, I think how you treat others around you is the most important thing about you. If you're being a jerk to me, I'm not going to go, well, are you an atheist or not? Well, if you're an atheist, then that's fine. No, it's not fine. No, absolutely not. This sort of tribalism that Eric is doing at the moment is just downright silly, because he doesn't live like that. He wouldn't put up with somebody, calling his wife names and acting like a jerk just if they agreed with him on the God issue. No.
I kind of wonder about, like, if we were in like a Gilead kind of world, if he'd be like, you know what, we're gonna put people to death because they disagree on the God issue. I'm not sure either of them would push back at all on that.
Yeah.
Jester sends us a super chat for $2. Thank you, Jester, and says infinite regress mini supermen are real.
So, yeah, that's a good question. Can the mini supermen create mini supermen of their own? And how small can you get it? Like, you get it into quantum levels of mini supermen? Ninjesta asking the real questions here. I mean, you didn't ask a question, but it raised real questions.
It does, because, like, at a certain point, like, you're down. we just did CERN just did an experiment, another experiment a little while back. They were trying to smash open quarks to see if quarks were made of like mini quarks, like and you know, ups and down something even smaller.
Yeah.
And nada. But like, what if it were even smaller Supermans at that
Super
point?
Planck. Yes, Planck length Superman. Yeah, Tommy and One by Land have the right idea. Yes. Yes.
It turns out that's the quantum phenomenon that's driving the universal clock, that's making time move. It's the little bit. We thought it was Jesus particles this whole time. No. Micro, like sub-micro Supermen.
Superman, yeah.
Yeah.
Superman all the way down.
That's amazing. We should like record this and release it as a video or something. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Tell your friends. We have a lot of fun here.
We do have fun. Yes. Yes. As Ember will never let me live down in my entire life because she just loves to torment me. We do have fun at my channel.
We all
what did I say? What did I say? I said I like to have fun, and then everybody said, yeah, I like to have, and it's just like, you people. I blame Justin.
You definitely should blame Justin, because while it became a thing after GE just repeated. So Mark was on Justin's channel doing one of those reading from right to left things that Justin does from time to time. And Mark finished up his this is who I am, this is what I do with I like to have fun. And so the next person to go was John, the Godless Engineer, and he did his whole thing like, I give you arguments and evaluations to stand up and use your voice, and I also like to have fun. And it became a thing. But the reason it became like a thing was Justin told us about that when we were in for the next episode. He was like, here's this running joke from Mark, and if you want, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if y'all want to like carry it on, it could be very funny. And so of course we did. So yes, blame Justin.
And I rue the day that I closed first, quite frankly, as per usual.
Yeah.
Look, I could have said way worse things. Let's face it. There's way worse things to say in a close. I give you the example of Eric Hovind. There's way worse things to say in a close, like never closing. That's, yeah.
I have a song in my head now about itty bitty Supermen. And it's like, it's from an old Dr. Demento radio program, but I'm pretty sure the original lyrics were not itty bitty Supermen. My brain is just fucking with me, as it is wont to do.
By creationism, the theistic evolution of God is a God that loves billions of years of death and struggle. And if we're going to end, then let me do this last thing real quick here.
Go for it.
And this is more for the audience than for us.
Preaching. Yes, I understand.
Is he so he's all the way back to part one. We started like 8 minutes in because Eric insisted on doing a prayer before they began the debate.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to want to close it with a prayer too.
Well, I'm not sure if it'd be a prayer as more of a plea to people. Like, look, you could be damned to hell, kind of, really obnoxious. Like, Eric has a tendency to do this. This is sort of one of his things that he does. He goes, hey, listen, audience, you don't want to be one of these people believing in theistic evolution. You want to come over to the good side. And he does a lot of this stuff. It really is sort of just obnoxious preaching. And so that's what I expect. But we'll see. We'll see. You think it's a prayer? I think it's obnoxious preaching. We'll see. What is, take your bets now.
All right. Reminder, I put several videos that'll help you understand this at creationtoday.org/
Buy my DVDs.
We should have guessed. We should have guessed. Hey, there's still time to fit in either A prayer or B, obnoxious preaching. Old or young, want more? Okay, what about middle age? Is that a possibility? No, nobody believes in middle age Earth. That's
right. No
right.
middle people. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Theistic evolution.
Why aren't there enlightened centrists on this issue? Like, there's people saying the Earth must be 6,000 years old, and other people saying the Earth must be billions of years old. So clearly the truth must lie somewhere in between based on no evidence, just this vibe that the truth the extremes have to be wrong, and therefore the truth is somewhere in between.
Okay. Let's just take the average. Is that Mr. Beast in the background?
Is what now?
Is that Mr. Beast in the background? Like, he's got his things up in the background. Is that Mr. Beast? Is he basically going to preach about not making money and or getting bitches? Is that what he's going to do?
Oh my goodness.
If I were to offer you $1 million, let's say call it $10,000, 10 grand, a Tesla. How much is a Tesla? 100 grand, let's say 100 grand, a Tesla, a hangout, a full day with Mr. Beast, or a parachute, what would you
called it?
Choose. Before you decide, let me just tell you your scenario. You're 30,000 feet up on an airplane and the engines have caught on fire. You're looking out the window and it's clear the plane is not going to be able to make it. The pilot.
I love it when people have to make up scenarios because the thing they want to tell you about never happens.
Well, the thing about this analogy that he's doing is you're 30,000, because I've heard this before, right? This isn't a new thing. It's like you're 30,000 feet up. The engine is on fire. You're going to, you're offered a parachute, and this is the get out of hell free card that the Christians offer you. And would you refuse the parachute? And the problem is that with the analogy is that, you can tell in a plane that the engines are on fire and there's things telling you, hey, this plane is going down. Number one, parachuting out of a passenger airline jet like that is actually insanely dangerous, and you might actually be better staying in the plane. But two, when you look out the window, none of this stuff is going on. We don't see this catastrophe that you're telling us about, right? Like, we don't, it's like looking out the window, seeing a perfectly functional plane and somebody going, oh, the engines are on fire. Even though you can't see it, you've got to take it on faith. Here, have this parachute. And you're like, are you out of your mind? Excuse me, crew, could you seize this clearly crazy person and restrain him for the duration of the flight? Because seriously, you're out of your mind. Like, this is the thing. You've got to take it on faith that the engine's on fire to begin with. So it's not an accurate metaphor. You have to believe in that situation first. So this is a reason why that doesn't appeal to the atheist. The metaphor doesn't work.
Actually, Fox makes an excellent point. Is the parachute even real? Because
that's good. Yeah.
To make a better analog, is he saying the engine are on fire? It to all appearances, the engine is operating normally. But what's worse, he wants you to jump out and have faith that you do have a parachute.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pray. Fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
Comes on and he says, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we've had some serious malfunctions. We're going to crash. In the next 10 minutes, this plane is going down and we have nowhere to land. He says, but if you want, we do have parachutes we can distribute. I promise the one thing that you care more about than anything else is that parachute. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the reality, the harsh reality. 10 out of 10 people die. And that's because of the curse that started with Adam.
10 out of 10, you say. What's the margin of error? How did you measure that, Eric?
It wasn't there before Adam.
Because if Eric is telling the truth about his mythology, then approximately a quarter of the world's population shouldn't die.
Right.
So, what up?
You know, Vance Havner said, too many Christians are stuffing themselves with gospel blessings while millions have never heard the gospel. Charles Spurgeon said, have you no wish for others to be saved? Then you are not saved yourself. Be sure of that. And I got a gift I want to give you. If you want to contemplate real salvation.
The free gift. He's been hanging out with Ray Comfort. Can you tell?
Have you no wish for others to be saved? Then you're not saved yourself. Be sure of that. Okay. Sure, it looks like I'm not saved. But when they say saved, they're not like they're sort of saving you from death that obviously happens. And they're sort of saying, hey, but beyond there, you're going to be resurrected into the kingdom of God kind of thing. I don't know. Mind you, I've got to keep, I keep having to remember this is for a Christian audience because obviously it's two Christian interlocutors. I think his tactics would be different if he was in against atheists kind of thing.
So Charles Spurgeon was a 19th century English Baptist preacher.
With a fine cane and a great beard.
Apparently, he was called the Prince of Preach. So, yeah. Oh, he was one of the early firebrand critters. The whole hellfire and sin and held nothing back. But there's hope. If you approach my altar today for the next 20 minutes, operators are standing by. If you give your life to Jesus, just give your life and then receive a free gift of your life, apparently. And also, tithe your life savings. Then you will be saved from this horrible fate I just told you to pretend is a thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Oh, he has a conversion story. Even though he was raised by Christian parents in the early 19th century, he was an atheist, folks. He didn't believe it. He was convinced his parents, like most adults,
dare he? Yeah,
were stupid. But then one day, some unexplained bad thing happened, and God reached down metaphorically and saved him, just plucked up this horrible sinner of Charles Spurgeon and protected him from this inexplicable harm that was sure to befall him. And in that day, he knew that because something he couldn't explain had happened, it must be evidence of one particular version of one particular denomination's interpretation of one particular translation of one particular holy book from the thousands years.
And just happen to get the right one. Amazing.
I mean, we knew the whole J. Warner Wallace and Lee Strobel shtick, I used to be an atheist, was not new, but like, I don't know. It just tickles.
Strobel's awful. He's absolutely awful. Strobel is, he gets sort of paraded around by the Christian community as this, well, he converts people to Christianity, but that's not what Lee Strobel does. What he does is he convinces Christians that they were right for choosing Christianity. Like to even begin with Lee Strobel's arguments, you've got to believe in Christianity already. He doesn't convert people. It's definitely not a conversion tool, or at least I don't think it is. I think it's there to show, oh yeah, this is why atheists should be Christians. But all of his arguments are absolutely terrible.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think Prophet of Zod on his Mr. Zod channel, or maybe it's his other Mr. Zod channel. He has a lot of channels, but on one of them he reviewed Lee Strobel's bio pseudo documentary thing.
Yes.
But Lee Strobel, I don't know if it's the writer or whatever, for whatever reason, they make Lee Strobel out to be a tremendous asshole, which, from what I've seen of Lee Strobel, is accurate, but
pretty accurate, yeah.
You wouldn't think they might do that. I don't know. It's very strange.
It's creationtoday.org/gift, GIFT. creationtoday.org/gift. And I just want to explain to you right there how you can know that you're going to heaven and you get to spend eternity with Christ. It is going to be wonderful. There's no more tears. There's no more sorrow. There's no more.
You can have roast beef with Jesus because eating animals is fine in heaven where there's no sin, even though eating animals is a sin. And don't pay no attention to the details.
Yeah.
Pain. That's the creator of the universe, God. And I pray that you'll take that seriously.
Yeah, amen. And obviously all of us here will agree that the gospel is the most important message that anyone can take from this discussion. And even though it seems like a hefty discussion, to conclude with the gospel, I think would put the cherry on top here. So if you don't know Jesus, we pray that you would know Jesus today. And both of these brothers here,
I would love to know Jesus. If only someone could introduce him. Just bring him around to like our Christmas parties or something.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a call-in show somewhere he could just, rock up to.
For sure. I mean, there's one running constantly. In fact, this very evening, Justin of Deconstruction Zone launched a new show over on the line. It's called Devangelical, I believe. So I didn't get a chance to see it, but Justin is often quite entertaining, and praise Doug.
Praise Doug.
Have the same passions about Jesus Christ. Of course, Eric Hovind, it's creationtoday.org. Michael Jones is aspiringphilosophy.org. You can go check out more of their ministries after this video. For Bible Dingers, you can go to BibleDingers.com. And of course, if you like,
it's not BibleDingers.org. Oh goodness. All right. I think we've just about reached the end with those guys. They're into random plugging at this point. Oh my goodness. Well, we did end up going for quite a while with that. Oh my.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. I mean, would you like to do some more? Just touch on some of the stuff you grabbed, or I'm easy. We can have a short one if you want. It did last a couple of hours, but I'm happy to keep going.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence because the stuff I've got is likely to take at least an hour, maybe two. Or we could, although we don't necessarily have to finish the dang thing. It's bonus content.
That's true. Yeah.
Or we could look at the what was the thing that you said you have?
I just grabbed Inspiring Philosophy's Problem of Evil response. Well, the latest one. He's got two up there, one from like 2004 and one from a couple of years ago kind of thing. Or maybe it was from later, 2000 and something. I can't remember. But so I just got the Problem of Suffering, a Christian response from Inspiring Philosophy. It's about 40 minutes long, but I sort of think we can just do a section of it to sort of respond to it. I think is fine, and then just quit whenever. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Would you like me to put it online so you can download it, or do you want me just to play it kind of thing?
Oh, you could just play it. That'll probably be fine for the time we have here. So let's
because I guess the reason why I grabbed it is because so all throughout the debate, Michael was sitting there going, I addressed this in my video about problem of evil or problem of suffering kind of thing on my YouTube channel. And so it was kind of like, yeah, okay, but you can just outline it. You don't I always find it, not obnoxious, it's always kind of just weird when somebody goes, oh, well, in response to that, I have a video on my channel. It's kind of like, yeah, but you're in a debate right now. People can't just, I mean, obviously, if you're watching it after the debate, you could pause it and go and watch your video. But, during the debate, people can't do that. So I think that it's sort of a bit of a cop-out. You should be able to at least go, okay, the video on my channel basically says this, this, and this, and, fill the major points. But I think the problem is that, number one, philosophers in general, and especially sort of Christian apologists, they get sort of, their sort of explanations are sometimes so convoluted that they can't outline it within 5 minutes or whatever, and that's a problem. That's a problem.
Okay, Answer says to describe altar calls to Mark. Okay, so
what's an altar call? I mean, I'm getting a gist maybe of it, but what is it exactly? I've never heard that term before.
It varies from tradition to tradition and whatnot, but what we did in the Navy, which was my first experience with one, despite all the various weddings I've been to over the years and so forth, is they will do the preachy bit, and they will be like, hey, now that I've preached at you, Jesus loves you, God wants to save you, come to the altar and accept Jesus right now. And so you come up to the altar, and they will have you like repeat the Lord's Prayer or something like that, and then they will offer you the communions, which is usually the cracker and the little sippy cup of wine or whatever it is that church does. Eat of this, for it is my body, and drink of this, for it is my blood cult, and now you'll be washed in the grape juice. And they put you through like a mini communion ritual to like connect you ritually to the divine. And that's
okay.
I mean, you still have to get like baptized and all that shit so that you're sanctified and reborn and whatever. But but that's what the altar call is. It's like, now you know that you need to be saved. You know how to be saved. Come and be saved, kind of thing.
Yeah. See, I've only been to church once, like a church service once, and they didn't do that. Right, like it was one of those sort of it was at a university campus, so it was kind of they did like some music and stuff, and people talked about things, but it really wasn't that kind of, they preached a bit about what's in the gospel or whatever, or what's in the Bible, and then it was a social event essentially. So it was very not come and accept God, especially to the atheist that was there, that was invited to see what all the fuss was about, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting
yeah, it was evangelical, Saf. Yeah, it definitely was evangelical.
They get they get to pump up the jams.
Well, I mean, music in general will trigger emotions, right? Like that's definitely something that happens. So I have noticed churches using music in general to sort of trigger certain emotions in Christians, and they think it's unique to Christianity and their God belief, when it's really not. I mean, any atheist can tell you they've been moved by music. Like it's not something that is unique to Christianity at all. I'll just find out where he starts. Yeah, so this is the part that I wanted to do. So I guess I'll just share my screen if I've won if Michael's won
you are dominating.
I am dominating. I'm a dominatrix.
Could be if you wanted to be, I suppose.
Okay. Well, share screen. Share screen.
Behold, a screen.
Yeah, so this is sort of the part where he really gets into it. What the problem? We choose suffering. Yeah, I bet you. I mean, you are watching us, Fox. That is. I think half of the time my audience is watching just to see me suffer, kind of thing. But that's okay. I'm here for it.
As utilitarian constraints, and so he's obligated to reduce suffering and increase happiness in every possible instance, because it's assumed moral goodness is tied to how much happiness an action results in. Utilitarianism is the idea that an action is right if it promotes or creates happiness.
Well, that isn't actually true.
I
So,
was going to say,
yeah, utilitarianism, it depends on the utility. So if your utility is happiness, then yes, that's a form of utilitarianism. But your utilitarianism can be other things, right? Like it can be order, for instance. It's an action is right if it promotes or creates order, or there's a sort of reverse one that if it reduces suffering kind of thing. Now, I don't choose that as my utility, right? I'm a secular humanist, so mine is based upon well-being, and well-being and happiness are not the same thing, right? And there's sort of multiple versions of utilitarianism. There is sort of a simple utilitarianism, which sort of says, well, do anything which sort of does that one thing. But there's also more complex versions. And so the idea that an action is right or wrong just because it produces an effect can be a simple form of utilitarianism, where the more complex version would say an action is right or wrong if the expected outcome would produce this thing, right? And that's a big difference because, for instance, you're told by police not to interfere with, a crime's going on, and you're told by police to stay back and not interfere, right? Just this scenario I've set up. Are you on board with me, Ems? Have you got what I'm saying?
yeah, it's
Okay, so you've got a crime going on. The police say stay back and don't interfere. Now you jump in and you save a life kind of thing, right? Like you actually do something that is good. Now, was it right for you to do that? The more complex version would say no, because the expected outcome would be to lead to massive problems kind of thing, right? Like you can't base your future actions on outliers, essentially, on what probably won't happen. Okay, so what's right and wrong in a complex utilitarian system would be based upon the reasonable outcome, not whether you got a certain outcome. Right?
It's aimed at improving, like getting the best overall outcomes, knowing there will be some that could have been saved but get lost, as opposed to going vigilante and
yes. Yeah,
but
also
sometimes achieving it. But yeah, you can't post hoc justify morality, and I see people try to do it all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I broke a gazillion laws, but I saved the cat though, so it's the outcome is good, and so the behavior is justified. No, like it wasn't a foregone conclusion that if you broke all those laws, you would save the cat or whatever it is you're up to. A little old lady, maybe.
It's more that sort of if there is a situation where it's highly improbable that you will get a good outcome, and you do it and do get a good outcome, it still wasn't the moral thing to do, because it is much more likely that you would have got a harmful outcome. The fact that you did get a good outcome, like you prevented some crime, doesn't make it what you ought to have done. As the police will then go and say, hey, there was a crime, we told you to stay out and you didn't, you did the wrong thing. And I think that is reasonable, because when you look back at your reasonable choices and what they would lead to, complex utilitarianism would say, well, if it's more than likely to get someone killed, then going ahead with that is not the moral thing to do. And so that's sort of the difference, where simple utilitarianism says just look at the outcome that exists, that at the end of the day. Complex would sort of go back and say, hey, was that a reasonable thing to do? And could you reasonably expect the outcome to be X? And if it is if you could reasonably expect the outcome to be the negative one Y, then it still wasn't the moral thing to do, even though it did lead to something good. And that's sort of the difference between them. So I always find that theists they always boil it back to simple utilitarianism, and always a sort of a straw man of, oh, just pleasure is what they're after. No, that is not true. Like, well-being is not pleasure. Okay, not what it is. I could give somebody drugs to make them, just have pleasure all the time or rewire their brain. They would not be well at that point. They would not be a healthy, functional human being.
Right. And this is a very simplistic understanding, possibly even to the point of being misleading.
Well, for simple utilitarianism, it's not, but that's assuming you've chosen happiness as the utility, which some people do. Some people say, hey, my personal happiness, my personal pleasure, my personal enjoyment is the utility that I'm after. And that's fine, but it's not mine. So he's kind of arguing against a fraction of the atheist community here, or the utilitarian community, yeah.
And that the greatest happiness of the greatest number of creatures should be the guiding principle of morality. So many skeptics assume God necessarily is obligated to reduce suffering and promote happiness whenever capable. But as philosophers Justin Mooney and Eric Reeton have recently pointed out, if another normative ethical theory is actually true, like deontology or virtue ethics, then God may have other goals or internal obligations that must be achieved in order for him to be the good.
Yeah, but that's not an answer to it, because then you're saying, hey, this action that appears to humans or utilitarianists that seems to be incredibly evil is in fact good. Because when we're looking at suffering that leads to good, like he's trying to argue here, I don't know anyone that really follows virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is a bit weird. You just have these virtues. As long as you're performing in them, you're acting morally. I don't know anybody that really subscribes to that. Deontology is,
it's classical Greek stuff. It's
yes,
when they were arguing with the Stoics and whatnot.
Yeah, and deontology was sort of created by Immanuel Kant, and it sort of is a system of morality based upon certain principles, which is fine. That's fine, but like when you're talking about suffering leading to good, like for instance, you suffer by going to the gym, but it is a good thing because at the end of the day, like when we talk about good and evil, we're really summing up whether it is a good thing over, taking into virtue the entire experience of what you get out of it, or what happens in it, right? So we don't say, oh, well, going to the gym is bad because it, I suffer and I sweat and I toil kind of thing, lifting weights, so it has to be bad. No, that's not what we say. We say, hey, over the entire, when taken into, all factors are taken into account, it's a good thing, right? So if God is doing these horrible things because he has to achieve goodness at the end of the day, then with everything taken into account, including the things we don't know about, they are in fact good. And that's where the problem of evil really hits the road, because you're basically saying that, oh, that child died of, malaria, but it's actually a good thing. Because when would God implement something evil when all factors are taken into account? They wouldn't.
Even though we did get Hitler, but IP is also revealing another layer here, right? Like the way he's trying to prescribe what God must do based on ideas that humans have come up with, and it's only the ideas humans have come up with so far. He's like running into the same problem as well. He's hitting both the problem of deduction and induction at the same time, which is kind of special, but he's saying God must do one of these things. He's revealing, he's pulling back the curtain that gods are always limited based on what humans can dream up for them to do.
Right. yeah, no, I get you. And so if they didn't have the prescription of God being omnibenevolent, all good all the time, can't, always does what you ought to do, basically, completely moral in all things, they wouldn't have this problem. But it is only the claim. And I don't think anywhere in the Bible does it say that God can't do evil things. In fact, I think at one point it says that it creates it. Yeah, I don't think anywhere. So it is just sort of this dogma that has been purported by the church that got them into this problem in the first place. Because if you can just say, hey, but God can do evil things in order for him to achieve stuff, then... Because don't forget, when you're talking about Hitler, they will appeal to free will, right? They'll say, well, God could stop it, but he's not going to, because he's got to allow Hitler to do the Hitlering, right? Or else he stops free will, and then that has problems. I won't get into the free will thing. That could last an age, but that's their excuse for that. It's more the natural evils that we want them to address, right? Like the malaria, the floods, volcanoes that kill people, earthquakes which kill thousands and thousands of people, kind of thing. Like, what's the point of that? Like, what do you get out of that? But they will assert that the earthquake is bad, but it is for basically a greater good down the line that we can't see, right? Like, it's for this good thing that's going to happen because God is good. It has to be. But then why any natural evil at all? And, they don't show that there's a good down the line. I would argue that some of the earthquakes, there is no good to them. Like, it's just horrible all around. But they will say, hey, but then you've got to argue that earthquake is a good thing, because down the line somewhere that we can't see, it is good.
Right. I kind of touch on this a little bit with the deep dive series. It's come up a few different times how Christianity has evolved, but there's two big evolution points in Christianity. The first is of course when Paul says, never mind what Jesus said, we're doing this now, and he just takes the religion in a completely different direction. Sure. But the second is a few centuries later when Augustine pops up and says, never mind what your book says, what church tradition is to date, what Paul said or what Jesus said. I have this pagan religion from Persia where there is a good power and an evil power, and therefore there must be an all good power, and I believe this Christian God, which just so happens to be the God officially recognized by the Roman Empire as the state religion, that God is this pagan god of light. And so we're like replacing the entire mythology with this other pagan mythology and just playing pretend that it's the same religion still.
Yeah.
In other words, some skeptics tend to assume maximizing happiness at all times is the goal of moral rightness, and so that must constrain God's actions. But in Christianity, this is not necessarily the current aim of God, and more likely, it's maximizing virtues in his creations. What this means is one cannot presuppose God is obligated to minimize suffering and promote happiness, because in Christianity, what moral rightness is most likely tied to promoting virtues.
Yeah, but this doesn't get at what is good and what is evil. So if maximizing virtues is the good in your deontology here, then basically anything which maximizes virtues, regardless of its other effects, has to be good. So if you have for instance, a person that's struck down by I don't know, some a landslide, breaks both of their legs and they have to learn to walk again, kind of thing, like some horrible incident, if they get some kind of virtue of faith and belief, and they get confidence in themselves to be able to overpower that, then you say that's a good thing. And I think that's dangerous. I think that's a horrible sentiment, because we can find silver linings in things. We can go, hey, this horrible thing happened to me, and I, developed this great strength to be able to overcome it. That doesn't mean the thing that happened to you was a good thing. That we must never go, well, that's good that it happened to me. No, it's not good. It's you have found something good in it, but the actual thing wasn't good. And there must be way less traumatic ways to find that strength kind of thing, like other ways. And the fact that God can't provide another way that's not incredibly traumatic is limiting God's power.
Additionally, but yes, absolutely that, because we could justify anything by saying, oh, well, eventually they'll find faith or some other value will come from it. And it's a big fucking oof. But also God would fail the moral test on this one, because now we run into the problem of divine hiddenness, because God simply revealing himself and declaring thing, like telling people specifically what he wants, would increase maximizing virtues in his creations by increasing moral rightness by more than anything else he could possibly do. And he's not doing it. So clearly this isn't what he's up to.
And you also have the problem of, well, if a human attacks another human and, they get some kind of virtue out of that, like the inner strength, the same as what God does, why is it moral for God to do that, but not moral for a human? You're really just sort of saying, hey, God has a different morality to humans. And you can say that. But at that point, it's kind of subjective, right? Its morality is what God tells you it is, not what he does. It's not his nature that you're appealing to. It's what he says is the correct way for humans to behave.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. And that's been an issue forever as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we know humans do that, sure, but I don't think God's supposed to do that. That would be a bit weird, sure. But, I mean, that seems to be the case when we look at all the things that God did in the Bible that we're not supposed to do, right? So it does seem to be that case. But don't forget that, like in a great many times, I'm not saying all Christians do this, but like I think Sapphire sort of touched on this in the chat really early on, that a lot of them appeal to God's nature for that morality. And if they do that, then what God does has to be within his nature, so it has to have some sort of morality behind it, and it shouldn't change if they appeal to its nature, because apparently God's nature doesn't change.
Maybe.
Just saying.
Promoting happiness is subordinate to promoting virtues.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say promoting virtues is a good thing. I think human well-being, sort of saying the physical and mental health of the individual is a good thing, right? And this is a problem that they go, oh, well, happiness is what you're after. Absolutely not. Happiness is a fleeting emotion. It's very quickly over. Like, we don't stay happy for that long. I think contentment is more what people are looking for, like that. Rarely are you that euphorically happy for a long time. It is something that passes. I mean, enjoy it if you're there. Absolutely enjoy it. But, we come down again, we feel better again. But I think overall human well-being is really what I would look for. So promoting happiness is subordinate. I mean, does that promote virtues? Not really. No. I guess you could equate mental health with promoting virtues, I guess.
Maybe, but then there's so many things that clearly don't promote mental health.
Sure. What do you mean so many things that don't promote mental health? What do you mean by that?
Like the constant stresses in our world, like, farming for starters. Yeah. Parasites, animals that want to fuck us up, other humans who want to fuck us up, and capitalism, and
well, yeah, just generally capitalism. And I sort of talked very recently on Aiden's channel on how I feel about capitalism. Well, I think that when we're looking at philosophy, we can't really go for individual things, but I think that I'm not sure I'd use the word virtues, but definitely things like safety and security, right? Like, so if somebody feels threatened, their mental health will not be good, because it is sort of it's antithetical to healthiness to be continually under threat and have a good mental framework and be well, basically. So I think that can be really detrimental. And I think that capitalism, in the way that it encourages competition, puts you on, like, basically capitalism encourages you to seek employment and work and, engage in it with the constant threat of destitution and, homelessness, and all of these horrible things happen to you. So yeah, I think capitalism is kind of antithetical to human well-being, or at least it could be moderated to be less harmful kind of thing. I'm not entirely sure whether that could be mitigated entirely. Even under communism, you would definitely have that fear of the central ruling party and, adhering to the communist system. So I'm not sure if that's a product of capitalism or just a product of a system being incredibly unfair, whether it is capitalism or communism or any of these systems kind of thing. But I think that instead of personal virtues, I would promote sort of, how would I put it? States of being that are conducive to mental and physical health, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a plus. I don't know if that would lead to good, because it depends on what you mean by good. Like, it'd be a better position, but it kind of comes across as promoting happiness. Like, now you're happier, sure, but are you doing good? Are you serving good? Are you is that even a thing that makes sense, depending on what you mean by good,
Well, I'm not using deontology, I'm using utilitarianism. So I think that good is anything which promotes or contributes to the well-being, or the, just use another word than well-being, the mental and physical health of humans and human society, right? So individuals and society. So obviously there's a lot of sort of disambiguation, which can, what's good for society may not be good for the individual. What's good for the individual may not be good for the society. But generally, overall, that is what I'm categorizing as good, is seeking out that utility. I think that a theist may call it something. They might just say what's good is what God is. That's it, But I think that's rather limiting.
Yeah, it's frustrating too, because it's such a shit argument. It's like, say, well, what if I say that what's good is what's in keeping with my nature? Now right. God is evil. What are we doing?
Well, they can't agree on a moral stance between them. All of the theists in their denominations, they can't agree on what God wants and therefore what is good. And we've got no way to distinguish between them. The thing is that if you want to distinguish what enhances mental and physical well-being, we can evaluate that, right? We can do medical tests, we can do psychological tests, we can evaluate, is this good for human well-being or not? We've got the scientific tools to do that. We don't have any tools for if theist A in this denomination disagrees with theist B, what tools do we have for telling who's right? None whatsoever.
Yeah. It's all vibes.
It's all vibes, or amount of faith, or what the Bible says, when they're both using that argument, what the Bible says for themselves. It just becomes a big argument. But if someone can do peer-reviewed study and show me that something is bad for my, societal well-being, say, then they can solve that argument right there. The best we can, I get you. It's just weird.
So God would be obligated to promote virtues primarily within this dreamlike reality, not reduce suffering. And therefore the skeptic could not assume it is evil for God to allow suffering, as that would not necessarily be tied to what is morally right and wrong.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Look, it's not that we're saying God can't allow suffering. What we're saying is there is suffering in the world that you thinking, if God's behind it, then that has to be good. Right? So if there's a fire like Ash Wednesday, right? Like it was a huge fire in Australia, killed people, burnt down so many houses,
Oof.
Of course, act of God kind of deal, like unless that was purposely lit, which I don't think it was. I think it was thunderstorm that lit that. Then that is God causing suffering, but you're saying it's for something greater, and that Ash Wednesday was in fact a good thing, because we can't see what God's up to in the future. And I don't get how that horrible tragedy turns into a good thing.
Because it makes room for more flowers.
Well, okay. All right. I kind of think you could do that without, burning down people's houses and stuff. But hey, that's just me. Moral rightness equals promoting virtues. I think this is terrible, because like if I go and slap Michael in the face and he goes and learns jujitsu or something and is a much better person for it with a much better virtues, then that must be good. Right?
Yeah. It makes you stronger, or them stronger.
Right.
So it makes someone stronger.
Right.
Given this normative status, God would have different obligations than an account of utilitarian obligations.
Yeah, no, that is not necessarily utilitarian. That can be a utilitarian position. I'm not saying that. So the reason why they keep using happiness is because humanism, they had its greatest happiness principle, but it wasn't talking about just temporary happiness. It was really talking about contentment. It was just called the greatest happiness principle. But what we're not saying, hey, if you want to improve your happiness, that's fine by any means necessary. That's not it. We're talking about overall well-being of society, not just, one person going, well, I've got to promote my happiness, irrelevant to whether it destroys people's lives or not. That isn't what we're saying. So it's kind of a straw man here. Promote virtues, decrease inequity. Inequity? Do Christians do that? Inequity refers to gross injustice, deep immorality, or wicked behavior. Well, that's just a sort of tautology, right?
I mean, certain values of wicked behavior might be more fun than others.
Yeah. Okay, so it's really referring to a biblical definition, saying like adultery, murder, that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, sure. Secondarily promote happiness. Where did you get that from?
Well, like, okay, if your primary thing leads to whatever the priority is, the priority itself is prioritized because it will theoretically lead to more happiness.
I mean, I suppose so. I suppose so. But that wouldn't be a moral obligation, right? Like, I don't get how that's a moral obligation. That's just an effect of the moral obligations and what it would cause. It's weird. It's weird. It's very strange. I don't get why that would be an obligation, because nowhere in the Bible does God seem to have an obligation to provide happiness. In fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the Bible anywhere where God or any of his prophets says anything to the effect of, this is all to make you happy. You know, it's all about God's glory, and you're lucky if he doesn't stomp on you just to, if it brings him more glory, he will stomp on you and not think about it twice. You know?
He should if it's to bring him glory, sure, because that's the aim of it. I don't know where he's getting this promote happiness from. Yeah, I don't know why that's in there. Yeah, it's kind of like me saying, oh, well, I want to increase well-being, and secondarily, I want people to have longer lives. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Increasing well-being leads to that, but a longer life doesn't necessarily mean that you're well, right? You could have a longer life of being in tremendous pain and you would not be well. So it's kind of a weird thing here. Okay. I don't know why he's throwing that in. I've got no idea.
Whose happiness, who's suffering? Because, like, you know, like Johnny says, God's a genocidal monster in his own book. So, like, it's not human suffering or happiness he's remotely concerned about. Maybe the Israelites, but he smites them often enough as well.
Yeah.
It's clearly what promotes his own happiness or what
no,
have
you're
you.
right. Yeah. His own satisfaction. Yeah, I get you.
Moral rightness is tied more to the action of allowing human freedom over the consequences it creates. Basically, it's plausible on a Christian worldview it would not be right for God to remove significant human freedom, even though indirectly that can lead to suffering, as long as what is good is not defined in terms of consequences, but actions. As Justin Mooney says, perhaps God is bound by a kind of anti-paternalistic obligation to let us develop our characters in the direction of our own choosing, and a veil of suffering is the only environment that will fully enable this choice.
I think he spelt veil wrong there. It should be a veil, V-E-I-L, as in a cloth that separates things. So a veil, what he's talking about there, a veil of suffering is kind of like, I believe a veil is like a grove of trees or something like that. It's a clearing in a mountain kind of thing, I think. So he's got the wrong word there, but I get what he's saying, right? Like the veil of suffering is sort of, we don't understand why suffering occurs. They just take it as, hey, there's stuff that you can't see beyond the veil, meaning that it was a good thing that it happened. And yes, human free will can account for evil that is done by humans, but it doesn't account for evil done by God. Right? Because all earthquakes, all of these natural fires, that apparently was done by God. It was planned by God. No human had any influence over it. Now you're sort of saying, hey, it is endorsed by God. Why? Because it has to be good down the line, and that's the start of your problem.
Volcanoes are healthy for you, probably.
Right. Possibly. Well, they have to be under the theistic idea that God can only do good. Now, if it's a God that can do evil upon people, then that's fine. But, you know, I think that Christians get themselves into a position where they have to talk to these people who've had these horrible things happen to them and go, yeah, I know it's horrible, but in fact, it is good. And then people punch them in the face.
We've all had that at some point. Like, you know, a relative passing away and somebody goes, oh, it's for the best. They're in a better place.
Yeah.
Fuck you. My relative just died. What are you doing? Are you trying to be cruel and hurtful? What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Or when, you know, bad things happen to us in particular, whether it's a broken arm or something like really traumatic, somebody will be like, oh, well, you'll be stronger and more resilient when you recover from this. So it's for the best overall, you know? It's like,
No,
why would you say such horrible things?
Yeah. You get attacked and brutalized. Oh, but it's all for the best because God works in mysterious ways. It's like, no, that's not a mysterious way. That's just a horrible thing that happened. You know, there's no mystery in it. And it's not good down the line. Just because you manage to salvage something out of this mess doesn't mean it's not a mess.
This understanding can help us address another aspect of suffering we can call the Goldilocks objection, which is that if God is going to allow suffering to produce virtues in people, then he has to allow the right amount of suffering. If he allows too much suffering, then he has gone too far and allows instances of suffering that were not necessary to obtain the greatest virtues in his creatures. But any less, and God would be unable to obtain the highest amount of goodness that would be necessitated by suffering.
So what virtue is God going to create when you have an infant that is born with some rare blood disease, presumably God deemed it so, suffers and is in pain all of its life of, you know, a few months and then dies? What virtue will that child get from that? I mean, unequivocally, that is an awful, terrible, horrible thing to have happened that is just awful. But Michael, with his then deontology here, he'd have to argue that the virtues it creates makes it a good thing.
This is so freaking crazy. Like, I could see somebody making an argument for like, well, it's not about the baby, they're not suffering anymore. It's a benefit to the parent who lost the child somehow. But like, he's put himself in a position where he has to argue that the universe is fine-tuned for exactly the right amount of suffering.
Right.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
However, this creates situations that seem counterintuitive. If the Holocaust killed just one less person, would that have created a worse off world because it doesn't have the right amount of suffering? If a man was...
That's a good point. I like that he's falsifying himself. He's asking the good questions. If you know, 10 people less died in the Holocaust, would it negate the... I mean, what virtue did that give? You know, what virtue is present there? I mean, he can appeal to free will and everything, but yeah, why didn't God stop it? Presumably it creates virtue, which is ridiculous. It was atrocious. It was an evil, horrible, terrible thing. And that is all. I mean, this is the knots that the atheists don't have to tie themselves into. Basically, if it you know, causes a decrease in human well-being across society or for individuals, it is a bad thing. And if it's done with intent, it's evil. That's it. You're done. But, you know, watch the convolutions that Michael does to try and explain why this is actually a good thing. Here we go.
There's so much fucked up here.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to note also that our friend Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels asked a very similar question by saying, could God have done the flood and killed one less baby? You know, or something like that, because then you have a better God, a less evil God. All it's got to do is kill one less baby. But also the graves, that spelling. I mean, I'm sure this is AI generated. It looks, the stars on the tombstones look wonky enough that it rings several alarm bells. But the spelling, April with the IE at the end, that's not German. Nor is it French or any. So I Googled real quick, and you know, Google of course is less reliable than it used to be, but it came back with Romania. Romania is the only country where they spell April that way, which doesn't really fit with the Holocaust, except for the fact that Roma, not Romanians, but Roma, were some of the people also genocided.
Oh. Well, I think they genocided a lot of peoples from a lot of different places. I think I thought it was the Romani that they sort of took it out on, basically, you know,
Right.
the Romani people, not
Is
Romanians.
IP
I'm unsure of that.
confusing Romanians with Roma? Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just wanted to point it out because it's multiple levels of fucked up. And
Right.
And also 1917, 1918 is not World War II Germany.
Well, that's World War One, isn't it? World War One?
Around that time, yeah.
No. So yeah, it's definitely not. Huh. Yeah, good spot. Yeah, AI hallucination incoming. Thanks, Michael.
If a man with cancer had only 5 more seconds with his loved ones before dying, would that have offset the right amount of suffering and created a worse off world? The obvious answer to these examples seems to be no. Furthermore, it might imply determinism, that God had to set everything a certain way to obtain the best of all possible worlds, and simply reducing or adding additional instances of suffering would make it worse off. But this presupposes a utilitarian view of goodness and badness, and that God must be obligated to determine the world on this understanding, that reducing suffering is what helps achieve God's goals. But if God's goal is actually to create free creatures that choose to become virtuous, then it probably is the case he might not need to create a possible world with the right amount of suffering, if such a world is even a coherent notion. But instead, God could allow one of the many possible worlds to come about without worrying about whether or not it has the right amount of suffering, because minimizing suffering is not the goal.
So, yeah, but you've got to ask how that would be fine if God wasn't benevolent, right? You're basically saying that suffering isn't bad. It's actually a good thing. So the question then becomes, why should we attempt to stop suffering, right? Because if we stop suffering and we try to, stop some kind of pain disease or something, then you may be robbing that person of virtue. It seems like he's post hoc determining whatever the actions that human takes, that was the right amount of suffering. Right. So if we can't find a cure to a disease which causes suffering in a whole bunch of people, then that was the right amount of suffering. If we find a cure and manage to treat these people and give them a good life, then that was the right amount of suffering. This is post hoc justification, because no matter what we do, that was the right amount of suffering. Right. So how do we know whether we should cure something or not cure something? We don't.
Yeah, and God's not telling us.
Right.
Which is sort of the whole problem.
Yeah.
I don't like how many other assumptions and presuppositions he's baking into his stacks upon stacks of contrivances. Like the possible worlds thing. Like a lot of philosophers take that for granted because it gets thrown around in logical what if situations. Yeah. But we don't actually know that there's any other possible worlds. And you don't just get to suppose that because you want to shadow box one particular straw man of one particular version of one particular philosophical sliver you want to slice it. Now, maybe he's building up to something and he wants to show all of this unrelated stuff as a foundation for a tangentially related point. But I don't know.
I don't know either. It's very, very strange. And sort of, so just to be clear, if you're not familiar with when people in philosophy start talking about possible worlds, it's not like a many worlds hypothesis or some kind of multiverse hypothesis. That's not what they're talking about. What they're talking about when they say a possible world is that you're basically saying if something is logically possible. Right, like there could have been if for instance, if I decided to go and instead of doing the stream today, go and run off down to the pub or whatever, right? Like that is a possible world. It's something that possibly could have happened, right? Like something that is logically possible. So possible worlds isn't referring to some multiverse kind of thing. It's just Christian philosophers, when they start to talk about some possible world, they kind of start to talk about that they actually exist in reality, which is weird because they're just hypothetical worlds that could happen, not actual things that are out there. You know, they're not talking about the many worlds hypothesis or you know, quantum states or anything like that. No, they're just talking about hypotheticals. That's all. Where it is possible that I, went down to the shops instead of doing the stream today. It's not in no possible world could there be that I occupied two places at once, that I both went down the shops and did the stream at the same time, because that's a logical contradiction, right? So this is what you have to understand about some possible world. It's not about physical things. It's just about logical contradictions that, hey, in some possible world, this thing could be true. Just means that it's not logically contradictory. But he's sort of talking about, I don't know, he's sort of putting up the picture that it's many worlds, and that's completely different. That's more in the lines of cosmology than,
Yeah, I get what they mean is, you know, logically possible, philosophically possible, and it builds into contingency arguments and things too. But yeah, like Michael is presenting it, it's like, well, all these worlds exist, and our actual world was handpicked by God from these possibilities to be the one where humans exist. But
yeah. The goal is to bring about free creatures that choose to be virtuous and accept God's love. And there are probably a number of possible worlds where that can be obtained. So it's more about the right kind of environments, not specific instances and an exact quantity with regards to cases of suffering. The amount of suffering is not the main focus of God, but bringing about unique virtuous creatures. So we have to make sure we're not presupposing a utilitarian view of right and wrong, as that would probably not be the case if one is using suffering to attack Christianity. This now brings me to an important idea that I want to put forward to answer the problem of suffering, something I am calling the law of triumph. Let's remember first that if Christianity is true, one cannot bring up suffering without first taking into account the existence of the afterlife, the dreamlike nature of this plane of existence, humanity's rejection of Eden.
What is he talking with the dreamlike nature of this planet's existence?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You know, I am very confused. I'm very confused. I don't know. Like, I don't. Like, I get you. This world seems bloody absurd at the moment, but I still don't see it as, you know, dreamlike nature. I see as, illogical, and things don't make any sense, and things are not static, and I don't see the world as being like that. I like, does Michael think he's wandering around in a dream? Is that what he thinks?
Might, if he's been dipping into Buddhism and he feels like, you know, Brahma is just another name for his god, and the universe exists because he keeps dreaming. Maybe, I don't know. There's also been a whole lot more woo-woo floating around lately, that some of it's been sneaking into Christianity, about this idea that only the present really exists, both the past and the future are in flux, and any possible past that comports with the reality we experience right now, like the past could shift to be a different possible past. I think I blame Zack Snyder for that one too, because it was one of the Batmans, an alternate universe Batman, who proposed that to a Flash,
right.
in one of the DC movies.
Was that Thomas Wayne, the Flashpoint Paradox? Because that was a great series. That was really good.
It was one of the movie movies.
Oh.
Right after Justice League and Superman coming back from the dead, they made the Flash movie.
Oh yes, yeah, that was based on the Flashpoint paradox. Yes, that was based on it, but it wasn't as good. It wasn't as good. The Flashpoint paradox was absolutely amazing kind of thing because of everything that happened. It was kind of the butterfly effect kind of thing. You change one little thing and everything else changes kind of thing. Really, really good stuff.
Oh yeah, love me some butterfly effect, especially when you're dealing with dimension hopping or time travel. But the way it was posed in the movie is that like time is like spaghetti, but it's not bendy spaghetti. It's like if you crossed from one universe to another at this point where they intersect, that's where you cross. Like the past of that universe could be anywhere. It doesn't have to align or be parallel with your universe.
Right.
And that's not how things work, but okay.
Okay. Yeah, dreamlike nature of reality. I don't, maybe it's just me, but I don't see a dreamlike nature of reality. Maybe it's just the way that I'm not saying that he can't perceive things to be like that, but as an empiricist, I really don't see the dreamlike nature of reality. I would reject that. I think my dreams are a lot more ephemeral. That's a $2. Your $2 word for the day. Ephemeral is like things that come into and out of existence, things that are impermanent. Basically, is ephemerability. So there's your $2 word for the day. Thank you. I do accept donations.
Suffering is not necessarily evil, but can be used for instrumental goodness, and that moral rightness is more tied to promoting virtues.
Yes, but if suffering can be used for goodness, then what caused the suffering must be, at the end of the day, when all things are taken into account, good, right? Am I crazy? Does he think, oh, well, suffering can be bad, but if it leads to goodness, it's still bad, but the thing that came was good? Is that what he's saying?
He's losing me here and there.
Right.
It does sound like he's working himself into a position where he's saying what's bad is good.
Yeah, but kind of. I think he's saying what's bad can be good. But like when we're talking about morality and immorality, it's what we ought to do. So if something causes suffering, and it was intended to cause suffering, I kind of lean towards, it is evil. I mean, it depends on what you're defining as suffering, right? Because I wouldn't define, say, exercise, like the temporary, ache in your system. I wouldn't class that as suffering. I mean, you might describe it as that, sure. But I don't think, if you do describe it like that, I don't think suffering would necessarily be evil either, right? Like, I think that if you suffer through a marathon and it makes you feel great and you're healthy and you put your career, that can be a really good thing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, someone that enjoys BDSM, if they're suffering through it and love it, hey, I'm got no problem with it whatsoever. Consensual BDSM, go for it. Whatever floats your boat, sure. I wouldn't categorize it as evil, but if you're talking about suffering as in intense pain and anguish, then if someone intends to inflict that upon another person, I would say, that's pretty damn evil.
Right. Like, I don't know. I feel like Michael's got himself all tied up in knots here. He's overcomplicating things, and maybe it's because he's trying to use motivated reasoning to get to a certain place with it. But I mean, so often we think of morality as having to do with rightness, but what you just said, that it's really about what you ought to do, that doesn't equal rightness necessarily. Because there's like, thinking back to the Navy, there's certain standing orders. There are things that you ought to do, regardless of whether it is right or wrong. You have to do what you ought to do. That is from a certain point of view, that's morality. It's not concerned with the goodness of the outcome or the evilness of the outcome. It's about doing what you ought to do. Why any given thing is what you ought to do in a given situation, that's the philosophical discussion of what makes things, what morality is and how it interacts with our reality. But the fact of the matter is, if you're on a military base and you're attacked by, locals, let's say, you ought to defend the base according to the standing orders. And it turns out that the people attacking your base are a bunch of 6-year-olds with bomb vests. It is morally very bad to have to murder 6-year-olds that are being used by less ethical people as human bombs. But your moral duty is clear. You have to defend your base.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it gets like where I can just sort of as I said earlier, I mean, I just stated outright, I can just go, well, anything that reduces or, harms the well-being of society and individuals is bad, and that which it's done with intent is evil, right? And it becomes very simple. This is very, very complicated. It has this problems coming here and there. I think that you're right. He's overcomplicating everything. And it's due to this sort of deontology that he's got to make suffering both evil and good at the same time, because of those natural evils like fires, floods, things that have nothing to do with human free will. He's got to do that. And it's sort of really showing here just how convoluted the gymnastics can get.
Than guaranteeing happiness. Now, in addition to all of this, I will argue that Scripture implicitly teaches there is a law of triumph imbued within reality, which acts similar to the way a physical law would act. For example, we know there is a natural law in place, where if the temperature drops below 0 degrees Celsius, water will freeze. The mere existence of this law does not guarantee ice will exist. It merely takes effect if this condition arises.
Well, it's one of the conditions you need. You also need some sort of water around as well to make ice.
It helps.
I don't. Yeah, like it can drop below 0 in space. It's still a dry environment where you won't get icing necessarily. That happens in atmospheres where there is humidity to actually ice up. But okay.
Yeah, and similarly, there's what do they call it? It's not exactly the same as a super cooled fluid sort of thing, but there are situations, I've seen it happen myself, where you have like a bottled water that gets below 0 degrees Celsius,
right?
And as soon as you touch it or jostle it, then it freezes. But until that happens, it stays liquid.
Right.
So it's not just 0 degrees.
But is he going to appeal to some kind of moral law? Like sort of a moral law like the laws of nature? Because that's what I feel like he's headed towards. And that, we don't see a moral law like we see natural laws in nature. We can't, do experiments and find out which one, how reality works as far as morality is concerned. It's not exactly the same thing. So I don't know why he would be not physics. I think T-Jump did sort of something similar. I don't know if it's a parody or not. It didn't seem like a parody, but it could be. But the Church of the Best Possible Worlds, like he just sort of appealed to, hey, a moral law that's undiscovered that we're sort of figuring out as we go along, and you just appeal to that, right, as your objective foundation for morality. Now, to me, it just sounds like just a parody of, Christians appealing to God's moral law, which it doesn't actually exist, kind of thing.
We're making it up and we're saying God wants it, like the shellfish, right? Like,
right.
Apparently doesn't really give a shit about shellfish, but some dude at some point was like, hey, God says no shellfish, just completely arbitrarily.
Yeah. And as we go along, religion is usually the one playing catch up on morality, so just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, the law of triumph would work in a similar way, as a law imbued in all.
Yeah, how do we test the law of triumph exactly? How do we, we can test the laws of nature, but the law of triumph? Look, I would agree that humans do need, in order to be well, we do need some challenge in our lives. We do need something to work towards. We do need challenges to overcome. We do need problems to solve, that kind of thing. I wouldn't say that that's suffering, though. I think that puzzles and problems and working things out can be quite enjoyable. I really think that when you're comparing, hey, we need challenges to overcome and some baby dying young, what's the law of triumph in that? What are we talking about here? I don't get it. I don't get it. But I do want to find out what the law of triumph is, because this sounds hilarious. I will say that. Ems.
All of reality. What the law of triumph states is, if and when a creature encounters suffering, a process can take over where the suffering will have no lasting damage for the creature and be turned entirely into a greater good, if that creature so chooses to allow.
Entirely to a greater good. Yeah, this is a problem.
The suffering... I don't see this having any relationship to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this does not connect with reality.
Right. Like, just because, say, for instance, the Jewish people salvaged something out of the Holocaust, a sort of, increased resilience and a willingness to overcome adversity, doesn't mean it was a good thing, right? And if you're saying, hey, it leads to a greater good, just like working out in the gym, you suffer, you're healthier, so it's a greater good. It's a good thing that you go to the gym, even though you're suffering through it. It's the same principle. And you're sort of going, well, if the creature chooses it, no, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. You would have to basically then say that some of the most horrendous calamities in human history are in fact a good thing, because the creature chose for it to be turned entirely to a greater good.
Well, like, take Pompeii, for example. A process can take over where the suffering will have no lasting damage for the creature. What the fuck is he talking about?
Sure, so some suffering doesn't have no lasting damage for the creature. I agree. But some does. Some scars people the rest of their life. I mean, come on.
Or ends their life.
Or, yeah, just ends their life, yeah. Like, this is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
This concept builds on the work of Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine.
No, of course.
Aquinas said, since God is the highest good, he would not allow any evil to exist in his works, unless his omnipotence and goodness were such as to bring good even out of evil. This is part of the infinite goodness of God, that he should allow evil to exist, and out of it produce good.
Yes, then those evil things you're talking about are in fact good. And then the question becomes, why should we try and stop the what we perceive as evil when it leads to good? It becomes a nonsense concept of, hey, do we try to stop this disease? Because if God's using it for good, should we try and stop it? Yes. Why? Why should we try and stop it? I think we should stop it because it harms the well-being of people. But you're sort of like, well, even if we suffer, it's going to be good.
This is the kind of shit that pissed me off about Augustine way back in Philosophy 101, because he would say shit like this all the time, that like God is all good. Yep. But also we observe there's evil in the world. Clearly, that evil isn't actually evil. It's really good. You're just stupid.
Yeah.
Effectively. I mean, granted, he did it in Latin, but
well, I mean, calling someone stupid's calling someone stupid, whether in Latin or otherwise. But he's sort of saying, "Hey, you can't see the ends. It's actually good." And it's like, yes, but then the entire thing has to be good, and then that's a problem. Yeah.
It's big fucking oof.
On this model,
yeah, and that's why you get, William Lane Craig sitting there going, "Oh, it's a great blessing the children died. It's actually a great blessing." And it's like, this is why Seth Andrews sort of says, Christianity made him talk like an idiot. But I'll go one further and say, for some people, Christianity makes them talk like a supervillain. Like,
right?
All of these people were killed and there was suffering and disease and all this stuff happened, but it was for the greater good. That's supervillain talk, my friend.
necessary suffering would still exist, since some creatures could choose hell and reject God. But the option would be there for a creature to allow suffering to be utilized as a way to grow value and virtue if that creature seeks God. The basic idea is not all suffering has to happen for a reason, which could imply determinism, as Kirk McGregor noted. However, if a creature seeks God's possible plan for them, the law of triumph would take over.
Yeah, this just seems like special pleading. Like, suffering is bad unless you're a Christian, and then it can be good, but only if you're a Christian.
It's it's Pascal's wager applied to in real life suffering.
Right. Wow, this is wild to me. Like, wow. Yes, I would agree. If God allows evil, then it becomes the source of all evil, meaning that natural evils, which the atheist would say are just natural events, they're not evil. There's no intent behind it because there's no mind behind it. But in the God paradigm, there is a mind behind it, and it has to lead to good, because God couldn't do that for an evil reason. So he couldn't do harmful things with intent to cause evil. So it must be good. So all of the horrible natural events that have killed umpteen people have to be good. And that's the source of your problem. Why should we stop any of them? Why should we try and do earthquake-proof buildings? Aren't we then stopping the law of triumph from taking effect? Are we trying to stop the law of triumph? Is that the wrong thing to do?
We're preventing the triumph.
Right. We're anti-triumphists who are curing diseases that otherwise would have gotten triumph for people. How dare we try and cure disease or make earthquake-proof buildings or, try to solve climate change? Yeah, horrible stuff. Horrible stuff. How dare we?
God's law would turn all the experienced instances of suffering into instrumental goods that shape and build each of us into unique virtuous souls.
Oh, except for those dirty atheists that keep trying to stop suffering. Then all they're doing is robbing people of the law of triumph, virtuous souls. How dare we? How dare you, Ember, try to stop people being virtuous souls? It's disgusting.
I'm just the worst.
Yeah, me too.
With our own unique stories and characteristics. God's law will guarantee a triumphant end over all suffering for all creatures who call upon him. As St. Paul said, "For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison." In other words, the law of triumph allows Christians to believe suffering can be utilized in soul building without claiming everything was ordained for a reason, because instead, unique souls arise through the indeterminate, evolving universe and can consciously choose if they want the suffering they encounter to be utilized in their soul building process.
Animal suffering, though, they can choose too. I think there's something to be said for dialectical thinking. So dialectical thinking is, it seems counterintuitive, but you can basically think sort of two ways at once. You can basically go, that thing was horrible, but this that I got out of it is good, right? You basically separate what you build on from it from the instance itself, right? Like, so we can say, hey, just say you had a flood which destroyed everything and you had to build yourself up from scratch and got a lot of personal development from that. Sure, that's basically what Michael's talking about here. But dialectical thinking sort of says, well, yes, it was good that I got built up some personal resilience. The actual event was bad, right? There is no good in the event itself. It's what I made from it. That's dialectical thinking. And it's important to do that because you can't start seeing catastrophes and suffering as a good thing, because then you get into the realms of Mother Teresa, who would make people suffer in order to promote these virtues. And I think that's what Michael's going down here. What Mother Teresa did is she stopped people from getting healthcare and pain-reducing drugs because she saw suffering and pain and misery as virtuous, as holy. So she denied healthcare to people because it was virtuous, because it would promote virtue within them. Mind you, when she was suffering and had health problems, she flew to America and got treated in the best hospitals as well. So there's that. But this is where this leads you to. Oh, you're suffering from some affliction? Well, it's God promoting virtues in you. We don't have to do anything about it. As a secular humanist, I can go, that human is suffering. That is bad. It is moral to try to help them be well and not suffer. Which is the better thing to do? I'll let you be the judge. I don't think morality is a hard thing. I think we just have systems of creating moral frameworks in which to work. So I will leave it up to you, but I don't think it is very good at all.
Right. All models are wrong, but some of them are useful. I keep imagining that there's aliens out there somewhere justifying suffering in their reality, going, oh, well, for us, it makes us more virtuous to suffer. But all these lesser creatures, like human suffering, they think it makes them more virtuous, but they're just stupid animals, barely above bears and deers and things, and suffering just happens to them as a consequence of their inferior status in the hierarchy of creation. Alas, the silly humans. And like their position would be exactly as valid. It's all made up, evidently so. But what's not made up is that poor Claire sent us a super chat for $9.99. Thank you so much. And said, if suffering is good, that people who don't suffer are actually suffering. So we have to guess why God allows them to suffer. So we're right back to where we started with the problem of suffering. And that is, it's very good.
that does kind of explain why they're supporting Trump, who is making everybody suffer. Like that kind of explains it. That makes a certain kind of sense. But yeah, I do like what you've written. So absolutely, yes. But you're really talking about a spiritual suffering, right? If you don't suffer physically or in the real world, then it's a spiritual suffering that you're going through. You're going to be right.
Suffer. What would you even call that? Like suffering from not suffering?
that is actually suffering recursion.
Yeah.
Yes. So recursion in programming, if you're unfamiliar with the term, it means where one process calls another one. So one process starts another one, and then that process calls the first one. So it's kind of an infinite loop that happens. So yeah, that's not exactly it, but that's essentially what we're saying. Wow.
Similarly, Josh Rasmussen and Jordan Westling wrote a paper on this idea.
Oh, he's getting into science. Don't do it, Michael.
Oh, no.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Of how Christianity is compatible with the world where creatures emerge from the evolutionary history of our planet, and they have pointed out this process actually helps explain why suffering and God's existence are compatible. If God were to instantaneously create everything and every being a certain way, God would be determining how these creatures act. But that is not how the universe came about. Instead, it has slowly progressed over billions of years, and life has slowly evolved over hundreds of millions of years. On this view, God does not directly determine everything, and thereby doesn't determine all suffering, but allows indeterminate and random processes to play out and agents with libertarian free will to eventually emerge and then act out on their own. And God merely includes the law of triumph for whenever a creature seeks God's soul-building process.
So no law of triumph for cows then? Are cows seeking God's...
Why isn't this law of triumph in the Bible then? Why did IP have to concoct this? Why isn't it in the revealed magical stuff that was handed down from the ancients?
No idea. His entire deontology is not in the Bible. I mean, the morality of God is kind of do what the priest guy tells you to.
Yeah, it's just obey. It's literally just obey.
To put it another way, God creates a world where life evolves through various processes, not directly determined by God. God merely sets up the system and allows the natural processes to evolve on their own. This allows creatures to come about.
Yeah, but some of that evolution is like not. Look, you know, when you're talking about evolution, you've got stuff that obviously is part of God's plan, like he just throws a meteorite at the world, right? Wipes out a whole bunch of things. Like I don't.
This is heretical as hell. Like, is God in control or is he not? Like, what are we doing?
It almost sounds like to me that he's like, well, God just creates the world and then just lets it run amok, like just lets things happen however willy-nilly. There's no God behind it at all. But it doesn't get around the problem of evil, because if God is omnibenevolent, he would take steps to stop it. And they say the reason why he doesn't stop people doing that is because of free will. But you cannot convince me that, you know, tectonic plates have a free will. I'm sorry. If God wanted to stop that, he could. He could stop the earthquakes, right?
Yeah, we don't have to have them, at least in terms of morality or even suffering. It's so stupid. What's not stupid? Poor Claire sending a member chat, for 6 months. Very cool. Thank you so much. And
Very
says, if suffering is good, why do Christians do charity?
To convert people would be my cynical response.
Well, there's a non-zero chance of that. I'm thinking of like the things that Jesus did. Like, you could argue he did them to show the glory of God, but I mean, healing people, there's other ways to show glory. I feel like the point is that he cared. And like, that's the whole thing with the guilt trip. Like, God sent his only begotten son to die for you. So pay us tithes because you feel guilty because Jesus suffered 2,000 years ago, knowing you would come one day. That's what it's about, right? Because like, if it were just for the glory of God, he didn't need to do that.
Right. And I think that the Christian sort of religion got well underway because they did show this charity. So when I sort of say to get more converts, it is sort of historically that it did better than the Roman religions because it did take care of poor people, and it did allow women a certain latitude within the church, and it was just a better idea all round than the idea of the Roman gods, which sort of, you know, you in order to be favored by them, you needed a shrine in your house, and they didn't cater to the lower class people. And guess what? There's a lot more lower class people than there is upper class in any society. That is the way they generally form. So, you know, I think that Christianity, it's not a surprise why it became popular, because it did emphasize a certain amount of equality between classes, which was sorely lacking in the Roman sort of, you know, societal structure. It was very much, well, your family decides where you are and what you're doing, and, you know, sort of all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, I think that why they do charity, I don't disagree. It may have been generated by Jesus, but I think to a degree it's because that, you know, taking care of people less fortunate is really popular because there's a lot of unfortunate people in society.
Yeah, and we do it as humans. We don't even justify it. We just do it because we don't like to see people suffer, and because we'd like to think other people would help us in the same situation. Everything added on to that is just, you know, to please God or make God happy, or the selfish altruism thing that a lot of people have bought into over the last few decades. That it's always for power or something, like to make people like us better. They say, oh, that's a good person, I'll obey them, or whatever.
Well, I mean, I've got mixed feelings about that. I think that, yeah, it is pretty awful when people are just giving, you know, helping the homeless for some kind of benefit to themselves, like they're doing it for YouTube or something. But on the other hand, I don't think the person who is having a hard time is going to complain. You know, I think that it's good that they're helped. It's just, you know, whether someone should take advantage of it. But I think that in a way, we've got to change the entire system so they don't end up needing that in the first place, because it is the result of the system that they're there in the first place. So I think, you know, but at the same time, I'm not going to stop anybody from, you know, giving blankets and food and water to homeless people. Like, that's a good thing. I'm not going to, you know, go, how dare you do that and use it for YouTube or whatever. Look, if it's helping them, it's helping them. At the same time, we've got to address the problems, right? Like the problems behind it.
We've been seeing a lot more memes floating around here in the US where it'll pose a situation. There's more homeless people than ever.
Yeah.
Glory, greatest country. And the right will propose something like throwing them in prison for being homeless. And the liberals will propose something like more government housing, and the leftists will say, why the hell are there homeless people in a country with more houses than there are people to use them?
Right.
Why is this even a problem?
And that's a fair point. You know, I don't disagree that there are some people who are homeless by choice. They don't feel like they can maintain, but they're such an outlier. They're such a tiny minority. It's not even really like appealing to sort of an anecdotal, oh, well, you know, this homeless person doesn't want to live in. That is such an outlier, you know, like such a long outlier. I mean, come on. It's absolutely ridiculous.
That do not have identities or natures determined by God, and so they are not forced to act a certain way. Instead, the environment and genetic history of each creature shape us in unique ways, creating a truly unique family tree, not determined by God, and where all can freely choose to come to God if they want to. Suppose God determines everything that happens within the natural world, then God is the ultimate source of each event within it. Ultimately, God planned and set into motion that which will inevitably produce that particular personal or psychological identity. Consequently, one only looks to one's biological ancestry as merely the path used to execute God's plan. Contrast this scenario, however, with an autonomous, indeterministic creation. Now the spontaneous interworking of creation make one's personal and or psychological identity much more dependent on the processes of creation itself, such that one would not be who or what one is without the radically contingent outcomes of those processes.
Yes, but there's no counterfactual. So you can't tell whether, for instance, I'd be a better or worse person without that suffering that I went through. I may, in fact, be a better person. Like, for instance, we know that a lot of people that have been SA'd go on to SA others, right? Like if they're SA'd in their childhood, a lot of them do go on to SA others. And it is a problem. Like, are you basically saying, well, they wouldn't be that person without that suffering? Well, yeah, they'd probably be a better person. Like, you can't just say, hey, you would be a worse person if this horrible event didn't happen to you, because you don't know that. This is just an assumption. This is post hoc rationalization of, hey, you are who you are now, and you wouldn't have been without that terrible event. Isn't it great? Well, no, not necessarily, because I could be a better person without that horrible event. You don't know, Michael. That's the problem. He is just claiming to, because God has to do good, and he's working backwards from that premises to say, hey, you would be a worse person if that event didn't happen.
Right.
How do you show that? Sorry, go ahead, Emma.
That's all good. It's sort of like when I was very little, my grandmother was very Christian, and she kept trying to convince me into Christianity. And things, well, just for one example, my goldfish died. And I said, Grandma, why? Why did my goldfish die? And she said something to the effect of, oh, well, God decided it was time for the goldfish to go to heaven. And I was like, well, why did he do that? And she like went through this similar kind of chain of causes and effects, like suffering is necessary in order to create a set of circumstances and conditions so that something greater could happen. And like TLDR, the goldfish died so that someday Jesus can come. Because if the goldfish didn't die, then we'd be in a different track of history, and different people would meet, and different people would be born or not be born, and we'd end up in total chaos. And so to stay on track with God's plan, every necessary thing has to happen, which means it's a weird thing, because he's saying that like God could have cherry-picked history, or God could have put things in motion to create a situation where we end up where we need to go, but we're the ones picking it. But he still picked it.
But could God have chosen a possible world where you are the same without that event, like the natural evil, like an earthquake happening to you? Of course.
Right. Like we don't have to be traumatized to learn certain lessons. I didn't need a math teacher to beat me until I figured out my multiplication tables.
Right.
Like I could learn that another way. Probably better.
And you would think an omnipotent God could facilitate that without these natural evils. Like, is there anything that I can't learn if we just didn't have earthquakes in the world? Right? What are we supposed to learn? Like, yeah, of course we can. There's tons of things, there's things I can learn without having, iron rods drop from the sky. Like if we were in that possible world where it just happens to be a natural phenomenon where, icicles would form into points and drop from the sky, killing people. Right? We don't live in that world. We live in a world where the ground shakes until it collapses buildings on people. So why one but not the other? Well, it's because that's just how the world is. But a theist can't think that. They've got to think that that's what God designed. That's what God decided.
Yeah, and I get it. A lot of people try to cope with horrible things that have happened in their own life in a similar fashion. Like a lot of bad things happened in my childhood, but they set up the circumstances where I ended up meeting my former spouse and ended up with my 3 older kids. And so like there's a part of me that wants to post hoc justify all the bad things of my childhood and say, if one thing were even slightly different, I would not have my 3 older kids. Now I might anyway. We don't know. We don't have counterfactuals. Right. Or I might have 3 different kids, or who knows, like we don't know. But
you might have the most wonderful life ever. We don't. That's the thing about the butterfly effect that we were saying. Change one thing in the past has all of these effects in the future. They use an example of a ant doing something, and then that causes a stone to be in a different place, which like causes a horse to lose its shoe, which causes a messenger not to arrive, which causes a general to lose a battle, and that changes the whole scope of history. That is basically not having counterfactuals.
That's actually happened, kind of. I don't know how much you know about American history, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'll keep it brief because we're we're starting to move on it. But as you know, the United States was sort of crucial to winning the war in Europe. Like, things were not great in Europe. The Russians were coming, but they needed the pressure from the Americans on the other side in order to be able to eventually overrun Berlin.
Yes.
That was only possible because the United States remained a single union during our Civil War. And the reason we remained a single union during our Civil War is because of a whole bunch of factors that go back to alliances that were put in place during our Revolutionary War, which was really more of a rebellion. But never mind that for the moment. The Revolutionary War, in turn, was caused in part by what we call the French and Indian War, because of the taxes that were imposed on the colonies as a result of that war. And the French and Indian War was caused in part by George Washington, as a lieutenant in the British Army, discovering French invaders inside the British frontier. If he hadn't made that discovery, that war wouldn't have broken out when it did in the way it did. So, in a certain very real sense, a weird coincidence that involved George Washington resulted in the defeat of Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, wild. But we don't know if the war would have broken out over something else. We don't know. But that's the whole point. We don't know. Yeah. We just don't know. And that's the whole point. We can't say what would have happened if a certain thing. We could sort of maybe presume of what likely would have happened or sort of speculate on it, but we don't know for sure. And that's the whole point. I think this is a good place to wrap up if you want, Ems. I think this is sort of my entire point. When you start to get into this deontology that he's doing, I mean, look at this sort of thing. Like, look at them trying to, determine what is good and what is evil kind of thing. It gets into this entire convoluted thing where good things are bad things are good, up is down, cats living with dogs. It just, it's just so wild to me. I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me. I think there's simpler ways to sort of determine it. I don't believe in objective morality, but I don't think that's a problem, right? I don't think that's a problem. I don't believe that your favorite food is objective either, but I don't see that as a problem. I don't think that laws are objective, but we still need them, right? Like it's not about it being objective. It's about having a functional society which is relatively equal for everybody, or else people get upset. Because we've still got to live together and work together and in some way make a functional society. Because we need to do that to survive.
The society needs to do that to survive. We've seen civilizations overturned before. When another civilization comes along that does the job of helping humans thrive better, then it replaces the older ones that don't keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that morality and sociology and anthropology, they're all ongoing subjects. They're not like, hey, we're doing history, this is what happened in the past. I think they're all ongoing. Like, so our philosophy coming up with better and better moral systems, I think that's fine. And I think in any society, you're really looking for just moral compatibility. Can you, do we have just general agreement on how to treat each other? Yes, that's fine then. We can get along. It's when they start to say, hey, you've got to believe in a particular God. You've got to do this. You've got to, take my religion and have all these things based upon something that I can't demonstrate, that we've got a problem. Because I don't see why we should. And when it comes down to it, a lot of their arguments is, well, might makes right. And we've got the mighty God. And it's like, yeah, but no. No.
Right. Like, you can't just say that.
Right.
You got to show me, or I'm not going to believe you.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you think of the debate, Ems?
It was weird. It was pretty funny overall. I don't think we really came to a conclusion from it, though. Like, they kind of left off on, you know what? We all agree that Jesus saves at Price Chopper or whatever.
Yeah. I found the entire thing weird. It was wild to agree with Michael and Eric so much. Basically Eric's sitting there going, yeah, but the Bible makes no sense if you take it like this. And it's like, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And then sort of Michael saying, hey, evolution obviously took place, and it can be fine with the Bible if you just think of it in this way. He's not wrong. The interpretation is everything. And sort of Eric sitting there going, no, I'm not putting anything into the Bible. as he's clearly just stuffing it full of how to make his thing work, is just hilarious. Just hilarious. And it was weird also because the moderators were sort of active participants in this debate, which I don't think I've ever seen that level of participation before. It was more like a panel with two main interlocutors than it was, a formal debate. So that was kind of weird. But what do you expect from Bible dingers? I can't believe that's their name. It is okay. Hey, look, they can call themselves whatever they want. I'm not stopping them. It just is,
It's true.
I thought they treat the Bible with a bit more respect than to ding it. Look, it could be worse. It could be worse. It could be Bible bonkers, and then we've got problems. Then we've got issues. Absolutely.
When your Bible thumping gets out of control.
Right. Yeah, I like this one though. I feel like it was a case of Dumb and Dumber though, and I don't really want to call IP dumb. I just think he's wrong and wronger, maybe. Wrong and wronger.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings about terms like dumb because, I don't think I've ever met a person who is dumb in the way that that's colloquially used. Like, people have different areas of knowledge and experience and so forth. And some people lack a great deal of what we might call common sense, but there's very few people who are dumb in that way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think intelligence and stupid, intelligence is kind of, I think it's a bad, we've only got bad tools to evaluate what it is and how it works kind of thing. I find it culturally centered around sort of Western culture, and I find it to be a bad example because I've met plenty of people that, the sort of, they would be less intelligent, but in a certain field or what they know about, they're actually really good. So, I think it's just deceptive, and a lot of people use it as some kind of bargaining chip, which I find obnoxious and absolutely horrible. I think there's no reason to degrade somebody just because they don't have the background that you do. I think that's terrible. I think it's terrible.
Yeah. And it's the sort of thing where you end up getting bit by it yourself. Like Caitlyn Jenner, right? Advocating for anti-trans politics for years and years and years. And then she finally gets a passport with the wrong gender marker on it. Oh, it's the end of the world. Well, you literally pushed for this. You knew.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
Happened to you.
Yeah. You played yourself. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah. If you keep pushing for only people with this specific kind of training or learning or experience count as qualified to talk about this or whatever, inevitably somebody who's more qualified is going to come along and be like, your opinion does not count by your own reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
What are you going to do? Yeah.
Oh, well. The good news is, folks, that you don't have to worry about someone else coming along with a better perspective, because you can join us next week over at Mark's channel. You don't need any special diplomas or any of that. You can just join us over there.
Cool. You mean I don't need you to have a diploma to get in my chat? Wow. All right. I'm really I am now low bar.
I know, we're just letting anybody up in here.
Wasn't it William Lane Craig that's like, I do not debate anybody without a terminus degree, like an end degree, like basically a doctorate. He doesn't debate anybody without a doctorate, basically. It's just like,
except for the times he did, but never mind that. Like Christopher Hitchens, for example,
and Alex O'Connor, who doesn't have a doctorate either. I think he's working on his, but I don't think he has a doctorate. So yeah, he's just making shit up.
I mean, that's sort of his job.
Well, yeah, I know. Anyway, Eric, you suck. Seriously, learn evolution. You don't know anything about it. It's crazy. It says, an evolution debate with no science in it is sort of weird to me. It's kind of strange, but hey,
and
it's
not much Bible. Weirdly.
Yeah, too much Bible for my liking. But any Bible is too much Bible for my liking. Then
it's true. It's true. I would have expected more. So yeah, we'll have a fresh debate over at Mark's on next week. Mark has a bunch of other sorted stuff. There's Is God the Asshole on us Western Hemisphere folks, Tuesday evening.
Night, yeah.
Fundamentalist Fails Thursday evening, also Western Hemisphere time. And occasionally you do bonus stuff. Like last week you had interviews, and you may have that bonus discussion thing you were talking about may pop up at some point. So subscribe, keep an eye out for things. I'm going to be migrating this coming week. I may show up in any number of places for sure. On Marin's channel, Misinterpretations.
Oh yes,
Misinterpretations. I don't know what the hell we're going to be talking about, but we're going to be talking on Tuesday evening.
Oh, that's cool.
And of course, shows may show up here at any given moment. So make sure you're subscribed.
Ring the bell. Yeah.
It's very, at this point where my health is, I do shows when I can, and that could be literally any time. So do ring the bell and share while you're clicking buttons. It helps a lot too.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers things. There's probably more. There's always more. Find my links at betterthanumber.com. I do a whole bunch of other stuff, including pretty pride flights and whatnot. Alrighty. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining. It has truly been a blast. Y'all have been so much fun this way more fun than IP and Eric, I'll say that much.
Yeah, especially Eric. Wow, listening to that guy, you know, I just love that I called the preaching at the end, that he, you know, that's Eric, like a pig in mud. He just loves to sit there and talk to the audience and threaten them and make these analogies and just preach. It is so very dumb. It's so very, like, it just is terrible. Eric, stop. Just stop. Seriously, have a conversation, mate. Yeah.
Oh, that dude, $14 million. The last time I checked his net worth, which was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but let's face it, he didn't make that all himself. Like, a lot of it he stole from his father.
Well, that's true.
Well, when I say stole, he was given it in trying to avoid paying tax liens on his stuff. So it was, I think he was supposed to give it back after the IRS stopped looking, but he didn't.
I think Kent was presupposing he was going to give it back.
He sure was. And you will hear about it all the time from him.
Why does everyone steal my money? Damn it, Steve.
Damn it, Eric. You give it back. You stole my money, Eric. Give my turtle back. That family. Who knew that, you know, the son of a con man would end up to be dishonest? Who knew? It's just incredible. I don't know how that happened.
It's a miracle.
Right.
Alrighty, folks.
Anyway, pleasure to be here. It was so good. Thank you so much for having me on, Ember. And yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be up to more mischief again very, very soon. So thank you all so much for joining. And as always, try not to die. Toodles. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for March. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Maya Adkisson, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Lilith, Ember Lynn, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, Secular Feelinist, Geo Sam, Thriver Scapegoat, Katie Bluebird, The Godless Engineer, and Why Because Weed Bro. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which also includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.